Well, had to happen sometime. That's right. After my series of Narnia, I was like, you know what? I think it's about time to dive into something quite the opposite in regards to Narnia. Less Christian and not Christian enough. A book series and movie series that was torn to shreds when they came out. And yet today, barely anyone talks about them. And it's just a fragment of nostalgia from the early 2000s. Yes, because the book came out in 2005. I know. I can hardly believe that even happened too. Yes, before Stephanie Meyers turned into like her own giant bubble of just praise and nothing else, we got Twilight, a teenage vampire book that, trust me, is not that bad, but still it's really bad. And I know, shocking, right? A cisgendered white male talking about Twilight and how much it sucks. Yes, true. But I do have some critiques that are quite, palpable and not just, oh, Twilight sucks because I don't like it. Yes, I get it. It's not part of my whole, it's not written for me. It's written for someone not me, okay? I totally, completely understand that. However, just like, a lot of good people on the internet, I know there's some good people on the internet, there's some instances in this book that's just kind of troublesome, to say the least. And surprisingly enough, no, it's not the whole vampire sparkle crap. Yeah, I know. I'm not as mad as certain other things in this book. Color me shocked. So why don't we just dive into this, oh my gosh, 544 pages? I could have sworn it was 1,000. Anyway, yeah, 544 pages, not words, pages of this pretty awful book. So the book starts out in this small town in Washington, which many Twilighters have deemed as their own, apparently. And oh gosh, of course. Forks, Washington the state, not Washington, D.C., because D.C. is a full city, but whatever. Anyway, Forks, Washington, where she, I guess stays with her divorced sheriff policeman father, which, yeah, if you thought the mustache in the movies were funny, he's got the mustache in the books. So, yeah, color that what you will. Accuracy. The reason why she has to stay in Forks, Washington is because her mother got remarried to a sports person, and I guess they have to travel a whole lot, which I gotta say would add a lot more, interestingness to the story, traveling around, I mean, why couldn't Edward and Bella get together? Because she's traveling and a lot, and Edward's gotta stay there. Drama, but no, she's gotta stay with her father in this small town. And no disrespect to Forks, Washington. Of course, it's probably a really decent town, but still, this story doesn't really paint your town in a pretty decent light. I'm sorry. Anyway, but she's the quirky girl or whatever. She's very shy. She's very introverted and all that. She doesn't really, talk to a whole lot of people. But apparently, she's, unlike most schools she's been in, she's very popular, which is, yeah, a shock. You wouldn't think that a really cute, shy girl would be very popular, but hey, there you are, I guess. But there's one that doesn't really like her. We all know who that is. Edward Cullen. Oh, Edward! And of course, she has to sit right next to him, and apparently he's appalled and just seems very just awkward around her all the time, which is, yeah, of course, he's pale, he's really, really beautiful and all that, but yeah, whatever, anyway. And I gotta say, I'm not a psychologist or whatever, but I would suspect this type of person to be bipolar a lot, because, one day he's nice to her, and another day he's just angry and agitated the next, it's kind of, kind of toxic. I wouldn't really go after him, Bella, but, whatever, I guess. We gotta pump out 4 more books, whatever. But the trigger, the one thing that kind of elevates this from being, oh, well, he's just a weird guy, to, oh my gosh, maybe there's something's weird about him, is that, there's this truck that's coming by and is about to crash into her, but Edward uses his, super speed and superhuman strength to stop the truck, just like in the film. If you've seen the trailer of the film, yeah, this is what happens here. And she's like, what the hell was that? And Edward's like, leave me alone. Whatever. She then meets the Giga Chad of this entire franchise, Jacob. Yes, I am Team Jacob. Skits will probably be Team Jacob as well, because, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, so she meets him on a nearby reservation and gives her some backstory about, his tribe having some, stories about some, his people having to fight vampires and his shape-shifting, tribemen kind of having to fight them and all that type of stuff, and some legends and all that type of thing, whatever. Something that would not be anywhere near the tribe. The tribe does not have these things at all. So looking back on it was like, okay, no, misrepresentation, no, okay. After this encounter with Jacob, she then looks up online about vampire lore, which apparently is all true online. All the vampire stuff is true online. And all the stuff that she finds is really, really close to how Edward acts in real life. Okay. Oh, but then guess what? Edward saves her again, this time from a SA encounter on the streets. I'm not going to say the real thing because, what? This is for teenagers? Why? No. What? And it's at this moment that we just have the most gigantic lore dump I've ever seen. And yes, this is bigger than the Lewis lore dump that we currently had in, the Narnia books and all that. This is the biggest one, and it takes up it's like Act 2, okay? Act 2 of this entire book is basically the biggest lore dump of all time, where we find out that, yes, Edward is a vampire. His family are vampires. He doesn't burn up in the sun, but he sparkles in the sun. Yay. And his family apparently does not drink the blood of humans, but instead drink the blood of animals for ethical purposes, and he can telepathically read minds. Because of course he does. He also explains that the whole reason why he's been acting the way he has toward Bella, aka being bipolar and all that, is because the smell of her blood is so infactually, just appealing to him that he goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs whenever she's around. And I'm not even kidding you, compares him to her blood like a recovering addict does toward heroin. Okay. He also says that the day they met, he came just inches of feeding on her and can't resist the lure of her anymore. But the most stupidest thing ever in the history of anything happens, where he agrees to date her, but keep in mind that he might go insane at any moment and, just feast upon her. So she's good with that, then it's fine. Okay. Why would I date someone like that? Whatever. But of course, Bella agrees, whatever. And then I guess they meet the family. They got a little baseball game and all that, which is like, fine, whatever. Of course, these vampires would play baseball in old-timey outfits. What is this book? Maybe baseball was a little bit more popular in 2005, but not by much, okay? Not by much at all. However, Bella also finds out later on that, his skin does sparkle, so there you go. And, also, he's been using his telepathic abilities to listen upon every conversation she's had without her knowing, and using his super vampire abilities to stalk her. Yes, this is a teen book. Wow. Look, I knew Twilight was kind of, garbage, but I didn't think it was this bad. He's also been breaking into her house to watch her sleep every night, and she's not mad about that. The only reason why she's mad at all is because sometimes she talks in her sleep. Not the part about, breaking into her house to watch her sleep, but being embarrassed about what she might say in her sleep. It's during the baseball game that, these three vampires come over and are like, oh, hey, there's some attractive prey that's very hard to get. Let's get Bella. So they fight. And they're fighting, and then, the vampires, they're flying. The other vampires try to keep her safe by, they keep by hiding her and all that. But the bad vampire, he tricks her by saying, hey, I got your mother, and I kidnapped her. But then she comes out, and she's like, and they're like, oh no, I don't have your mother. I got you though, bam. And then they torture her and all that. He also bites her on the hand, infecting her with, the vampire gene, the vampire virus, whatever. And then Edward gets there and he's like, oh, crap. Well, I can't let this happen. So instead, having his forceful will, and all that, he sucks out the vampiric virus by sucking her blood and spitting it out. Like a rattlesnake bite. Yep. It's also a huge thing about how he let her not become a vampire because she wants to live with him forever during the same age because the love and, and all that. And Edward's like, oh, I can't be with you because, all this crap, it just happens to you and I can't do it. But then Bella's like, yeah, half the time that I was in danger was not because of you, so it might as well just happen, let me just, get this going. And he's like, all right, fine. And then they go to prom together, and then Bella's like, I hate prom, I hate dancing, why'd you bring me here? I thought you were going to turn me into a vampire. And he's like, why would I wear a tux for that? What the heck you talking about, woman? And then that kind of ends it. Oh boy. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, this is not the worst book I have read of all time. Okay, listen. I've read The Eye of Argon, considered by many to be the worst book ever written. And yes, it is a really, really terrible book. So at least Stephanie Meyers knows how to kind of develop characters and sort of develop a story. Not a good story and not good characters, but at least she, attempted to. All right, let's get the good out of the way because trust me, there's not a lot, but there is some. Surprisingly enough, yes, there is some good in this book. For instance, I like Bella at the beginning of the book, not at the end, because that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I like the fact that she, actually had a character and actually, was her own woman in the beginning of the book. And she did a lot of selfless things. Like, for instance, she moved to her dad to be with her dad and all that because, yeah, she figured being with her mom is going to be a little bit difficult for her and all that, and wanted to let her just iron out the kinks with her new relationship and all that. And you know what? Yeah, that's kind of selfless. And you know what? Hey, I'm all for it. But then they meet Edward. She meets Edward, and oh boy, here we go. All that character is just flown out the window, just tossed out the window. Now it's just a POV character, basically, for all the little girls just swoon over someone trying to protect them and all that. And yeah, it sucks. Not because of, that whole thing. I mean, there's been other books and films and all that where, yeah, the main character is basically a POV character for, a relationship and all that. And some have actually been pretty good, like The Princess Bride, that type of thing. But, the people, the guys, were a lot better than Edward, stalking and hearing a lot of what Bella was doing without her knowing and her being fine with that. What? Now, to be fair, there are some people, I'm not saying that there isn't, there are some people that, want that to happen. Again, you do you, but for most people, being free and, doing your own thing, that's actually a kind of a good thing. Having privacy and all that, that's a good thing. You don't want some people to listen to every single word you ever say. And again, I'm not a little teenage girl, so I can't really relate to this, but it just seems a little messy. It seems a little not that good. But to be fair, there is a mixture, not a lot, but there is a mixture of some little things that makes Edward sort of appealing, and I kind of understand the appeal of Edward. Like, for instance, the whole sucking the blood thing from Bella and all that, it seems like that's a kind of a very, very blatant allegory for sex. I know, I can't believe I got that. But yeah, even though he really, really, really wants to suck her blood, he refrains from doing so, which I gotta admit, even though, there's a lot of nasty guys that, want to take the flower from women and all that, especially at that age, seeing that, is kind of refreshing. And, it's kind of nice not to have to appeal to the whimsy of man, all that type of stuff, whatever. I like that instance. But then again, he's stalking her and doing all these other things that's really creepy and is a really big red flag, but she doesn't care. And that's not good. And I guess that's all I'm really going to cover for, the Bella and Edward shenanigans for this book, at least. If you want to hear more, I mean, there's a ton of videos on YouTube and a ton of articles are on the internet that really dives into this a lot better than I would, but I'm just going to dive into my own experience reading this book. Now, there are some things that I really did, in fact, like about this book. And I've read books like The Power of Argyle that I didn't even like a sliver of it, okay? But there's some things in Twilight I actually did kind of like the beginning, and like the fact that, the sucking the blood's basically an allegory for sex or whatever. And, I mean, that's fine, it's a good thing. But there's a lot of bad when it comes to this book too. But one thing that's not bad is Jacob. And yes, he's only in very small bits in this book. He only has 2 conversations with Bella in this book, but still, this guy's a Giga Chad, and I love him. Team Jacob all the way. And again, right? I mean, Stephenie Meyer does have the basics of knowing how to write, but a lot of it is very, very overdone. Like, for instance, the baseball scene. That's like the 3rd act. It happens way too long. And even though I like baseball, It feels like an eternity. I don't care. Why is this in here? Teenage girls do not like baseball. I know. I was a teenager when teenage girls existed, and I played baseball. None of the girls really enjoyed watching the games, okay? No. She also invented a fourth act in this book, which I did not think was even possible, but here we go. Yeah, apparently there's like 4 acts in this book. Number 1, Act 1 is the introduction of Edward and Bella and all that, which I actually found to be pretty enjoyable up until they meet. Act 2 is when, Edward gives the big lore dump. Act 3 is the baseball game. And Act 4 is the giant climax at the end. And yeah, I didn't really like the giant climax at the end. Even though it had the most action, it was kind of on par with the giant lore dump. It's just happens. I don't care. Also, she really, really loves adjectives. I mean, most of this book is adjectives, and not really good ones. A lot of it's melodramatic, which, again, that's kind of what teenagers are. They're very melodramatic, but yeah, reading it as a cisgendered adult man, it doesn't really gravitate toward me. I don't like the melodramaticness of it. I have a feeling that Stephenie Meyer was just trying so hard to be like, oh yeah, they're from 2 different worlds, but they can't be together for some reason. Like Romeo and Juliet and all the other biggest romance things of all time and all that. But really? They just go on a whim and kind of stay together for the sake of being together. None of it really resolves. None of it really, progresses or anything. Edward's mostly like, okay, yeah, let's be together. Oh, wait, no, let's not be together because you're in danger a lot. Oh, yeah, you're in danger even though I'm not around. Okay, let's be together. It just happens on a whim, and I get it, right? That's what teenagers do. But at the same time, he's like 1,000 years old, so he should be, not like that. He's also partially dead, so the teenage hormones shouldn't be, created, They shouldn't be being made into his brain and all that, So I'm not going to say that he's a teenager either, because really, he's not. But I'm ending this whole thing with just a good thing. And yes, it's actually a pretty decent thing. And that is the scope of the vampire lore. And yes, I get it. The sparkling skin, yeah, that sucks. I get it. But that is what, vampires kind of are, It's kind of like, the legend of Slender Man and all that, It's a bunch of people kind of building upon the legend of Slender Man. A lot of people throughout the ages built upon the legend of vampires, and Bram Stoker created Dracula, kind of the de facto vampire myth and all that, And ever since then, a lot of people have been tweaking the vampire lore and all that, Like, for instance, Angourie Rice, I guess, created this whole world in, the interview with the vampire lore where, I guess aliens were involved and Egypt was involved and all that crap. And yeah, that sucked, but still, vampires having sparkly skin, that's nothing, okay? I get it. They're supposed to be, dissolve, I guess. That's kind of a basic vampiric thing, but sparkling skin, that's the least of the problems in this book. I would say the Bella wanting to date a stalker, that's kind of a bigger issue here, okay? Yeah, and that's what most people are kind of bad-mouthing these movies, this book for. No, badmouth the whole stalking angle. Don't do that, whatever. All in all, though, I would say this is probably the best in the Twilight Saga, at least for now, because it's the only one. But yeah, it's the best one in the Twilight Saga, probably because it actually has a story, and it actually has some character development and, tries to tell a story, and even does so well that it invents the fourth act. There's a fourth act in this book. So there you go. Wonderful. Just spectacular. 10 out of 10. No, not really. Please take that as a joke. But if you think this is bad, which, yeah, for the most part, yeah. New Moon. Oh no. Get ready. So a little bit of history with this one. Apparently, with New Moon, it was supposed to be called Forever Dawn or something like that. It was supposed to be like a little epilogue because Twilight was supposed to be like a one-off for Myers and all that. But apparently, in 2005, when this book came out, it was pretty. It was a pretty big, huge thing for a lot of readers, especially the teen girls. So, yeah, I guess she decided, you know what, it's time to pump this crap out and, make some more money. I mean, explore the story. Yes, as I originally told it. Yes, precisely. And let me just say before I get into, the actual story here, actually a couple things. First of all, Myers as a writer, not as bad as people say she is. That being said, these books can use like a ton of rewrites. But overall, the basic gist of a story could be reamed from these books, sort of. I can see a really good, decent story in this book series up until this point, but there are some problematic issues, very problematic issues that need to be addressed. But yes, overall, the story could be decent enough. That being said, part two, my second little thing here. If you thought this was a reinterpretation of the Romeo and Juliet story that's been pretty prevalent throughout space and time for all love stories told, period, oh, get ready, because we're getting into more Romeo and Juliet. Oh yeah. So apparently a few months have passed since the events of Twilight, and Bella and Edward, they're trying to make it real, they're trying to keep it loose, keep it hanging, But apparently Bella is, having nightmares of turning 18 and being older than Edward. And because of that, she really wants to be turned into a vampire so they can live together forever at the same age. But Edward is denying her and constantly telling her, no. Okay. But then, Edward's family decides to give Bella a birthday party, if you will. And seriously, the funniest thing in the entire, ironically, the funniest thing in the entire saga up to this point happens. And I gotta admit, when I read this, I almost just cracked up laughing considerably. So when she's opening up her presents, she gets a paper cut, right? And guess what? It's bleeding. So what's gonna happen? Edward's brother Jasper comes over and just started lunging at her and is like, blood. Edward fends him off. And then she gets, hurt more in the process, which I gotta say, when that happened, I was like, oh, what did you expect? How do you... What? She isn't hiding or anything. She's just showing it for the world to see. But only Jasper, only one vampire gets triggered off this. No one else. Okay, fine. But in the book, it literally comes out of nowhere, and it's just absolutely hilarious. I'm sorry. It's during this that we find out that Edward doesn't want to turn Bella into a vampire because he doesn't think that vampires have souls. and he doesn't want Bella to not spend eternity without a soul. So there you go, I guess. And then, after all that, Edward's like, okay, it's gone far enough. I'm done. I don't want you to get hurt. Goodbye. So yeah, he bogs out, takes his family with him, and leaves town. So yeah, there's that. Now, here's the thing, too. If you are triggered by any, self-harm or anything like that, or, the S word or whatever, please skip this part of the video because there's a lot. Probably not a good message for people who could, be receptible to these types of things, especially young teenage girls. But, if you are triggered, please just take care of yourself, and all that. Skip this part of the video and, yeah. Anyway, Bella is so distraught from losing Edward that she starts doing these reckless things, trying to, permanently off herself, if you will. There's the time when she's lost in the forest and the search party has to find her and all that. And if she does reckless things, apparently Edward's spirit will appear and she can, get close to him again. So she does reckless stuff trying to off herself and so she can see the spirit of Edward and hear his voice. I'm not even joking when I'm saying this, but this is truly just terrible. This is literally the worst thing this entire franchise has done up to this point. Wow. Okay. And to, kind of intensify this, she gets her hands on some motorcycles and all that. And, yeah, who's a gearhead but our dear friend, Jacob. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend. He returns. He gears up the motorcycles and all that. Apparently, he has a infatuation with Bella. No, my guy, don't. She's way too good for you, but, whatever. And apparently, Bella is also like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Maybe Jacob is actually a good person to hang around with because he's cheerful and he's, good-natured and all that. What? I didn't even know people could be like that. But apparently, it's a quote-unquote only sisterly love because her one true love is none of that crap. So there you go. And, yeah, her dad's warning her about the giant bear wolves in the woods and all that. And, then Jacob's like, hey, don't be with this gang or whatever. They do kind of reckless stuff and all that. But apparently they're like, good people and all that. They're not like, terrible. They're good community people and all that, helping the community out and all that. So which is actually, it's like a pretty good thing. It's like a good thing. But apparently with, the leader, Sam, which I gotta say, this is probably the worst Sam ever in the history of media, but, who's actually a bad guy. If you know, you know. Anyway, so Sam, he gets, apparently people change whenever he's, get around him and kind of becomes part of their lackeys and all that. But Jacob is all like, that won't happen to me. But then it happens to him, and then, Bella starts to stalk him because Jacob starts avoiding her as well. Because, of course, when you avoid the women that you love, eventually they will come around to you. I don't know. I don't know. But apparently, I guess they find out in the meadow where, Edward takes his shirt off and shows Bella's being, Bella, he's sparkly or whatever. Apparently, there's this other vampire that tried to eat her and all that, but from the first book, who says that, yeah, apparently, there's other vampires that are trying to eat her, but he came, fast to, kind of stop them, kind of warn her and all that, but apparently he skipped breakfast, so guess who's on the menu? But then the wolves come around and start to, trashing the vampire up and all that, and, yeah, so apparently she goes around and confronts Jacob and all that, but apparently he is the werewolf. Yes, we find out Jacob is a werewolf, and the reason why he's been hanging out with these crazy shenanigan people is because he has to take up arms and fight the vampires, because that's just how it is, I guess. Also, another trigger warning, because this once again, more talk of the S word happens. So, yeah, if you get triggered again, just skip this part of the video too, I guess. But anyway, yeah, Bella tries to throw herself off the cliff for some reason. Not really a whole lot to really talk about there. She just does, because she can't get... She's very torn between her love of Jacob and, Edward and all that, so she decides to jump off a cliff. Yeah, after the werewolves decide to protect her from the vampires that are trying to take her. Yeah, so Jacob, loves to take his shirt off, so he takes his shirt off and, runs over, swims over and helps her out and all that. And apparently, there's this other vampire that can see into the future or whatever, and sees that she threw herself off a cliff and all that. And, so apparently, she just want to make sure that she's okay and whatever, and Bella's fine, and the other vampire's like, oh yeah, okay, so Edward is about to kill himself. What? Yeah, he's about to turn himself into the Ventari over here, and he's going to show himself to humans, and then the vampires have legal right to, kill him and all that. So she runs and she runs and she runs, and she saves him just in the nick of time and all that. And Edward's like, oh, you should have known I was doing this just because I love you. And so roasted, I guess. And then Jacob's like, oh yeah, well, if you turn her into a vampire, that breaks the werewolf and vampire truce, and we'll be coming after you and all that. So yeah, that's it. This is the most... Oh gosh. If you thought the first book was problematic, my gosh, this one... Oh no, this one's far, far, far worse. In the first one, she actually, has a character. This one, she's just pawning all over Edward to the point where she can't, quote unquote, survive without him. So she has to do these things in order to, get closer to him. No, that's a terrible message for kids, especially teenage girls. No, don't do that. Also, it has a bad reference toward, therapy, because Bella's father mentions that she should probably go to therapy, because she's doing all this stuff. And she's like, no, I'm going to be put in a straitjacket if they actually told everybody what's inside my mind and all that. And I'm just like, no, not really. You wouldn't be. No, bad message. Bad. I don't think I really have to go into this, but, doing everything and anything for your mental health is probably the best thing you can do. Therapy is very, very beneficial. If you need therapy, please go get therapy. But no, that's a terrible message. Also, while I was reading this book, I couldn't help but kind of think about history, specifically. Vampires against werewolves, yeah, it's fun and all good and all that, but we find out that the werewolves are basically Native Americans, mostly all of them, not necessarily all of them, as we see in the movies, but most of them are Native American, of Native American descent, and vampires are very palish white. In fact, the whitest people in all time. And there's a struggle. Oh boy. So I'm not going to get into that, but that's very problematic. That's a big red flag. Yeah. And worst thing about this book, with all the, terrible messages and terrible racial things here too, it's just so boring. It has roughly the same amount of pages as the first book, but barely anything happens. I just tell you, the highlights because, yeah, you can honestly fit every plot point into like 20 pages. It's fleshed out in 500. Yeah. And of course someone's going to be like, oh, well, actually, this is actually an allegory for, teenage angst or whatever. And, Stephanie Meyer had this happen in real life, so he kind of transferred over here. No, I don't care. There's a lot of terrible messages in this book that teenage girls should not read, let alone any teenager should read at all, okay? No, this is at the bottom of the list, obviously. Yeah, the first one had terrible messages, but at least you can kind of gloss over it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a teenager of any sort reading it, but at least there was one big glaring issue as opposed to like 5. And by the way, even with this book, I get it. I went through a terrible breakup too, like a couple of them actually, and if I read this book, it maybe would give me some catharsis. I know there's some people out there that it did give some good cathartic messages and all that, like saying, hey, you're going through a hard time. It's all good, But still, there is some terrible messages in here, like, I don't know, trying to off yourself to be closer to your mate or what should be your mate, using other people and all that. No, I'm sorry. This book is terrible. I wouldn't necessarily put it, galaxies, below Twilight or whatever, but it's planets away. It's planets away, let me tell you. And now it's time for Eclipse. Oh, gosh. Okay, so this one came out in 2007, right before the movie, actually. The first one. So, pray for me. And before reading it, and before even watching the movie, I always found this one, I don't know, I always felt like this one's like the bridge between the second book and the supposedly supposed to be the third book, Breaking Dawn. Because why is there 4 books? I always seemed like this one is the boring one, because it's kind of just filler for in between the second book and the fourth book. But apparently, oh no. No, it's not. It's far worse. It's far worse. Now, in this book, Bella is grounded, thank God, because, she flew to Italy, to see the Ventari and all that, without her father's permission, so there's that. Yes, thank you, Dad. You did something good there. Her time with Edward is also limited, so thank you, Dad. You're doing the Lord's work here. Also, apparently, in between this book and New Moon, he became Team Jacob. Thank you. I'm loving this guy now. This guy is now my stan. Okay, this guy is now my NPC character here. I mean, thank you. But apparently Jacob cannot, won't be around Bella because, she's dating his mortal enemy. So, I mean, yeah, there you go. She still wants to be a vampire. Edward says no, yada, 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 whatever. And then apparently there's some murders happening nearby in Seattle. So, yeah, apparently that's vampire activity, so, okay. And also, apparently, this Chad of a dad here lifts the house arrest here, if only to seek out Jacob. So if Bella seeks out Jacob, hangs out with Jacob and all that, then he'll lift the ban a little bit. So, I gotta say, Giga Chad over here, thank you. Please, keep on it. But apparently, Edwards gets all jealous and all that, and he's like, no, you can't be with Jacob. You gotta be with me and all that. You gotta do exactly as I say. But then Jacob, as of this moment, still the Chad of this entire story here, he breaks into Edward and all that, just kind of does it without Edward knowing and all that. And apparently Victoria, who was a vampire trying to take her out and all that, take Bella out, is still trying to get to her, and Edward failed to kind of tell Bella about that. Yeah. Wow. Can't believe people think this isn't toxic. A few scattered things happens. Bella wants to be a vampire sooner than later so she can protect herself, and everyone's like, no, and her clothes get taken or whatever. People think it's Victoria, but other people are like, yeah, whatever. And she sneaks out to see Jacob a whole lot and is like, hey, Edward sucks. You should probably be with me. And quite sensibly. And Bella's like, no, I like the toxicity and all that or whatever. And yada yada yada. And apparently, the vampires are creating an army in Seattle, and people think it's rogue members of the Ventari and not Victoria. So, okay. Then Bella goes to a bonfire held by the Native American werewolves and hears their supposed origin story and all that, which I gotta say, okay, if there was a book that was just about that, I would be all over it. But, of course, this has nothing to do with that origin story, so here we are. Even though it's a cultural appropriation and all that, I would find that a lot more interesting than what's happening here. And, Edward's family, the Cullens or whatever, decide that maybe they should raise an army too, to take on the other vampires and all that bit. But, apparently Jasper, they're in luck because Jasper, he was a general. He was a general in the army. Guess what army Jasper was a general of? Yeah. Gee, do you not find these books racist yet? Anyway, Jacob's all like, hey, declares his love to her and all that, and forces himself on Bella, and Bella's punches him in the jaw and breaks her hand and all that, and Jacob says he's sorry for the sexual assault that he, did and all that and whatever. Thus, the character assassination of Jacob has begun, and now I'm not a Jacob stan. He was so good, and then he had to do that. And apparently, the vampires actually do think it's Victoria because, why the hell not? Because she's the one that stole the clothes to give the scent and all that, and why don't you think she would be? Dummies. Jacob says he's sorry, gives her a bracelet, and Bella's like, all right, fine, I forgive you. Of course. And then Jacob apparently, gives the go-ahead to use werewolves in their fight against the vampires, so okay. It's during this time that the Cullens decide to use Edward's scent to kind of use his scent to over the mountain pass or something for an ambush. So there's that, and then Bella emotionally, distraughts him enough for him to say, hey, okay, I won't do that. So instead, they go together with Jacob to kind of hide, I guess, their aroma using his werewolf scent and all that. There's a snowstorm and all that, and Bella's about to freeze to death, but Jacob spoons her using his werewolf heat, warms her up, and thinks about doing a lot of dirty things to her throughout the night. Okay. Then, I guess, Edward sees them together and all that with his vampiric, I guess, powers. They confront each other, saying how they would be the best choice for Bella and all that, which I guess this is every girl's dream or something. I don't know, whatever. Jacob is a total simp and says that he will fight to the ends of the earth for her, and then Edward's like, yeah, I'll let you go if you choose Jacob or whatever. But apparently he would still stalk her from a distance for the rest of her life. Wonderful. It's during this moment, I guess, that Edward tricks Jacob into hearing that, you know, he and Bella are now engaged. Jacob is going to, you know, off himself in battle unless Bella, you know, forces him to kiss her, which she does, and apparently he was lying. So there's that, and yeah. He goes to fight in a battle anyway, so, okay. So during this, I guess there's a battle and all that, and there's a battle, and they're fighting and all that, and, yeah, so there's a bunch of people that are trying to get Bella, but they don't, and yada, yada. You know, Jacob gets injured and all that. Bella says, oh, yeah, listen, I'm never going to choose you. It's only going to be Edward. Bums her out. Whatever. Anyway, and I was excited to be a vampire soon. So there you go, the end. And then Jacob is, you know, just kind of upset at the fact that he gets a wedding invitation to Bella's and Edward's wedding. The end. Oh boy. Yeah, this is even more boring than the first. Because, yeah, even though I guess you can put yourself into Bella's perspective and all that, I don't understand why you would in this book. I mean, I get it with the first one. The first one is like, oh, yeah, there's this weird guy that's sexy and all that, and he's after you. Oh, gee. And then there's, you know, the breakup one with, you know, the New Moon, which is like, you know, fine, you know, it helps deal people with like, you know, really terrible breakups and their first breakups probably and all that. But this one is kind of bizarre. This one, I don't understand why you would, maybe to be like the center of attention with like two guys just fighting over you. But even then, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. Cool. Also, this is the first one that we get the imprinting part of the entire story, the more infamous parts of the whole story with the werewolf imprinting, which is, I guess, setting up for the big thing at the final book. Oh no. It's also in this book where Jacob defends his friend for imprinting on a 2-year-old, which... No, that's like basically the incarnal sin, the biggest incarnal sin of all of these stories, probably, just slightly above offing yourself for your loved one. No, do I even have to explain this? No. First of all, this is an actual tribe in Oregon, okay? Or in Washington, I don't know. In Washington, right? And so this book is cultural appropriation and teaching that this tribe okays the fact that, you know, they would do this thing when they really, really didn't. None at all. Huh? No. Wow. No. I have a feeling, as do most people on the internet, apparently, that Stephanie Meyer kind of course-corrected what, you know, she wanted out of these books. Because, you know, Jacob was nice. So we all wanted Jacob to end up with Bella, but she was like, no, Edward's gonna be the end-all be-all. So we gotta course-correct here and make Jacob kind of a simp, and make Edward somewhat nice, which is kind of very, very goes against his character quite a bit. But dare I say it, Bella actually becomes better in this book compared to New Moon. I know, shocking, right? But still, she, doesn't take any crap from anybody anymore. I mean, Edward gives her crap, but she's like, whatever, screw you. She fights back with Edward and all that. When Edward tells her to do something, she kind of does the exact opposite, and you gotta say, she's actually, standing up for herself. And even though sometimes it can be still a little iffy, she comes into her own, actually. So I gotta say, that's more character development than I thought would happen at this point. But, the character assassination of Jacob here is just, oh gosh, it kind of bounces out, whatever. The fight scene is actually not that bad either. It's actually pretty decent. I know I kind of brushed over a little bit because actually nothing happens in there, but the description of the fighting, not that bad, actually. I was actually getting kind of hype. However, I'm dead set on the middle for this book. It is quite literally in the middle, in between the shockingly somewhat good first Twilight book and the surprisingly awful middle or second Twilight book. It's kind of in the middle here. On the one hand, we do get Jacob still being somewhat good up until like halfway through, when he starts to be kind of a simp and kind of an ass, where Bella is actually becoming her own person and all that, but still getting a lot of terribleness with imprinting and all that crap. And the character assassination of Jacob, I will never forgive this book for that. So there's that. But all in all, a satisfying book. 12 out of 10 we recommend. I'm just kidding. It was pretty bad. And I know what you may be thinking. Oh yeah, well, we just talked about the 3 books. Might as well go to the 4th book. Nope. We ain't going there quite yet. Because instead, we're going to talk about this novella. Because yes, as a connoisseur of Twilight nowadays, I gotta read this short little novella based on a small character in Eclipse. Because of course, there's another novella about this weird character that died in Eclipse. Now you might be wondering why I didn't mention Bree Tanner in my review of Eclipse. That's because she barely takes any recognition in anything whatsoever. She's barely in there. In fact, I just kind of noticed that she was more or less just one of the vampires that Victoria was using to take out Bella or whatever, but yeah, I guess she died, whatever. So, yeah, we're done there. But secondly, I also did not even know that I was supposed to be taking note of this character, because I had no idea that this novella existed until I was halfway through reading Eclipse. So, yeah, I was like, well, I gotta add that to the list, because my OCD will not allow me to pass through without reading this thing. Thirdly, even though this is classified as a novella, it's over 220 pages. I would consider that a book, especially, since a lot of this crap takes place in this thing. So let's get started. Let's read the short second life of Bree Tanner. So first of all, you hear about Forks, Washington all this time. In the previous 3 books. We're out of there. Okay, we're not in Forks, Washington anymore. We're in Seattle, baby. Okay, we're home of the Seattle Space Needle and Frasier and nothing else. Because and probably Starbucks. Yeah, Starbucks is also headquartered there, but nothing else except for Bree Taylor or Bree Tanner, whoever the hell she is. I don't know. I am clearly losing my sanity based on these books. I also, I guess, technically, this book, I guess Stephanie gravitated toward this character as opposed to any other character because, A, apparently, she gets in the head of Bella more often than not, and 2, she's one of the newborns, you know, the one of the few new vampires that come out to take on Bella and all that. So yeah, there's drama there. There could be, if there was any. So apparently through this book we learn that newborns, when they are born newly, if you will, still has human blood still coursing in their veins, not like old vampire blood. It's human blood, so they're very hyper intense here. Okay, they're high killing machines. Okay, they're out for blood and they will do anything and everything. They are hyper powered. Imagine Edward, but just coursing through his veins is just like he's high on the snow over here. Okay, he's so hyped up on the sugar. Now, okay, the beginning was actually the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in a very, very long time, okay? I needed something. I needed anything to grasp onto with these books because it has just been pain, torture, and downright depressing throughout these 3 gigantic novels that when it opened with two I can't even. 2 vampires talking about which superhero would be the best vampire. I almost lost it. But of course, the 2 that they're arguing here is Spider-Man, which was owned by Sony, so I don't even know how Stephanie Meyers got the rights to use Spider-Man in this book, and the Hulk, which is owned by Universal, so, and kind of Disney too. I don't know. How did she get the rights to these? So, in order to prove, one of the vampires, in order to prove that the Hulk is the best superhero, he goes Hulk mad, Hulk smash on a car coming over here, and I'm sorry, is this fan fiction? Because this is just awesome. This is far and above the best thing I have ever read in any Twilight book of all time. Oh my gosh. But of course, we all know who is the best superhero, okay? It's Batman, okay? Listen, if he was transformed into a vampire, he's basically halfway there already. I mean, he would, honestly, obviously, he would be the best superhero. Okay, listen. Also, where's the DC rep? Where's the Image Comics rep? Okay? You're gonna have Marvel here? Well, I mean, that's fine and dandy, but, I mean, Batman? Superman? Anybody? Listen, okay? What about, oh crap, who is that guy? Let me just look him up real fast. Spawn, okay? You tell me that Spawn, who is basically a vampire himself for the most part, you're not gonna say Spawn is the best one here? Okay, Blade, are you kidding me right now? What, hello? What? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. I haven't had a tangent for most of these summaries, but I gotta say, I gotta latch onto something, kind folks, okay? These books have been terrible. Whenever there's superhero talk, just let me have this. Let me have this. So apparently, I guess they're following this one guy who's saying everything, the rules under Victoria or whatever, but they're kind of doing their own thing. They're not really they're not really following this one guy. They're following this other guy named Raoul over here, okay? And after this Hulk smash incident, oh my gosh. Okay. So she follows Diego, who apparently is the older of the new bloods and gets away with a lot of more things because he follows the rules almost to a T. And these rules are basically don't be seen, don't draw attention to yourself, and just find the victims that won't be missed, which is also, I guess one of the things that they have to do in order to get more people, more new bloods, if you will. And apparently that's how they got, a Bree over here, okay? She was starving because she ran away from home or whatever, and the only thing she had to get to lure her into the vampiric virus here is a burger. Yeah, we're in that type of story now, okay? We open up with vampires, joking around about superheroes, and then all of a sudden this. What is this? But here's the thing, though. Through these 3 books, okay, we've explained basically the entirety of vampiric lore as, it is in this world. In this little book, we get basically the same thing, but, told in less than 100 pages, which I gotta say, yeah, it works a lot better here. Like, for instance, not all vampires apparently, have these specific powers, like mind reading and all that. A lot of vampires kind of get their own magic thing to do, They're kind of like mutants, I guess. So, yeah, there's another Marvel superhero reference there. Joy. Not in the book. It's not in the book, okay? That would be a little too gratifying for me, okay? But yeah, apparently, it makes them more valuable for quote-unquote her, because they don't know Victoria's actual name because she never shows herself to any of these people after they turn, kind of promoting herself to be like their omnipotent god, if you will, which is scary. And yeah, it adds a little bit more interest in all that. It was, I gotta say, okay, I'm bored. It's kind of interesting. And we get some more interesting little powers here. Like, for instance, Fred, the vampire Fred, who, I gotta say, great name. He has this power where he can be physically repulsive to anybody. So, yeah, he just turns it on and off, where he's like, get out, and then he turns on the repulsiveness or whatever, and no one can really see him or hear him or anything like that. It's kind of interesting. And I gotta say, what is this? I'm actually, getting involved in a Twilight book? What's going on here? But yeah, there's a reason why they're called New Bloods. It's because, they're very really impulsive, if you will. Like they get really angry sometimes, and when they get really angry, Hulk smash. I'm sorry, I can't get over that. But anyway, yeah, they destroy things that probably shouldn't be destroyed. Like, for instance, they destroyed like a ton of hideouts, I guess, and they got to keep on moving because they keep on getting, angry and Hulk smashing everything. I'm sorry, I can't get over that. Which apparently this is an entire conversation between, Diego and Bree. So apparently they're kind of deciphering why were they created in the first place, which apparently they come to the conclusion that it's only for numbers and not for anything else. So yeah, there's that. And apparently some of the dialogue here is so bad, it's hilarious. I'm not going to really recite this here, but they use a lot of colorful language that isn't necessarily PC for today. And retrospectively looking at this is hilarious. To me, at least. If you got an issue with, bad words or whatever or something like that, I would suggest kind of refraining from this. But, yeah. Wow. Also, what's interesting is that apparently what they know is the complete opposite of what they should know that vampires, can or not do. Like, for instance, they gotta hide in darkness and avoid the sunlight because they truly think that they will burn up if the sun touches them, which we know that vampires sparkle. So, actually, this is pretty interesting. The reason why they're told this is to have them under further control. Okay. Why am I getting so hooked on this book? I'll get into it why, but I'm on board. Wow. Okay. It's also during this time that Diego and Bree decide, you know what? Well, let's try this out. Let's see a little bit, because apparently if you do indirect sunlight, nothing happens. So maybe something happens if you do direct sunlight. I don't know. So they do that, and lo and behold, no, they don't burn up. They're sparkly. Yeah, that happens. Which, yeah, I guess there was some involvement here, a little bit of transparency, a little bit more drama with this, but apparently nope. It's kind of we're done. It's over for this character. Okay. But then lo and behold, nope, we're back into the drama because we gotta keep this hidden. We gotta keep this secret because, yeah, the guy that turned me, Diego, is, I don't know, I trust him, but I mean, what the heck, what's up with this? Why can't I die in the sun, that type of thing? So, yeah, this is kind of an interesting conflict here, which I gotta say, wow, I can't believe I'm actually this into a Twilight book. But I'm this into a Twilight book. Is my life a lie? Is this PTSD or something? Is this, what? Is this the thing that Belle has in Beauty and the Beast? What? Huh? Stockholm Syndrome? What? What am I? But then, of course, it's all sucked up with this romance between Diego and Bree, because of course there has to be. But, to be fair, it's not toxic like Bella and Edward. Is it unneeded? Absolutely. But it's not toxic. I can't believe that's the standard we have with these books, but there we are. At least it's not toxic. Dun 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 dun. But then, we see Diego and Bree, stalking Riley, who is apparently the vampire that, turned Diego and all that. And apparently he and Victoria get together or something, and then they kiss, and they're all like, what? Ew, gross. Which I don't really know why that's gross. I mean, you literally just did that before, but whatever. Anyway. And apparently it's during this moment where we find out that she's more of a petty little child than previously realized, because, yeah, she has a lot of fits, and they aren't good. Again, this is fan fiction, but really not. And if you want to know why Victoria hasn't had any connection with the Cullens yet, because, there was this one person that can see the future or whatever, it's because she doesn't have a plan. She doesn't have a war plan, because seeing the future is all about, the decisions that people make so they can change. So yeah, the reason why the Cullens can't see into the future is because Victoria has no plan. Okay. Also, you might be wondering, well, the Volturi, they don't want any new vampires, so why is she getting away with this? Well, that's because they hate the Cullens so much that they're going to give the Victoria 5 days to figure it out. And after the 5 days, then they'll, attack her with all that she's worth if she's unsuccessful. Okay. This book was missing bullcrap. I'm glad it's here, because the story felt naked for a second. Now, there's some other stuff that goes on. Diego's like, hey, hang on to Fred for a bit and, keep away from his scent and all that. So, Yeah, so I can confront Riley and all that, but Bree is like, hey, listen, we can get out of here, we don't have to be with these idiots. We can, be free and not attached to anybody. But yeah, then Riley comes in without Diego, and it's written in such a way where we kind of think, oh yeah, so Diego's dead, but, Riley has to convince Bree that, yes, he's still alive, but if you want to see him, you gotta do exactly as I say, basically. And she's basically like, okay, fine. But then, I guess Riley finally tells everybody what the plan is. So the plan is to sniff, Bella's clothes, and yeah, whoever can get her the first can have her all to themselves. And Bree's like, so you got all these older vampires and all that. You just want us to focus on this human. What? But apparently, according to this lie here, they say that the sun is angled in just the right way, where it won't hurt you, and you can go do your thing and fight this war during this particular point of the day because of the sun's angle and all that stuff. Okay. So yeah, apparently, Bree and Fred, see the bull crap in this situation, so Fred decides to, pull out all the stops and become so repulsive to Riley that they essentially become invisible. But, Bree wants, Diego. So, yeah, there's got to be conflict here. Which, yeah, after all this, it kind of plays out exactly how it plays out in Eclipse, except from Bree's perspective. So there's that, where, they fight the war and all that. Bree has to do this because you gotta find Diego, but she can't find Diego. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because, they did the torture that they were going to do to anybody that backs out of this fight and all that. So there's that. Anyway, she sees Bella and she's all like, what the heck? Why is she, why can I hold myself against her? Why all this stuff? Why is she not fearful of me? This is very bizarre. And then, the shapeshifters, aka werewolves, come around and they're all like, yeah, destroying them and all that. And, the coven, falls down. The Ventari come over and kind of do away with the loose ends, including Bree. And at the end, Bree gives a little thing to Edward saying, if you see Diego, please save him and all that. So, yeah, there's that, I guess. So, here's the thing about this. It's actually not that bad. I was actually pretty surprised. Get it out of the whole Bella and Edward garbage, and it's actually a fairly basic story, and being basic is literally being the Citizen Kane of this entire franchise. There are some things that are just so unadulterated bullcrap, like the whole superhero discussion at the beginning, that I was just like, oh, it's gonna be one of those stories. I don't care what happens in the rest of the story, but I'm here for this. There is literally so much bullcrap that is absolutely hilarious, but also some actual good in this story. Like, there's more good in this story than there was in the other 3 huge-ass novels that I had to read for this videos, okay? This is the best Twilight book. And not only that, it's mercifully short. I cannot believe, all this crap, okay? Crap that took like 3 gigantic novels for me to, get out of Stephanie Meyer was all explained in like a little over 200 pages. Wow. There were some things that were kind of tense. There were some things that were kind of spooky. I gotta say, wow. I didn't think Stephanie Meyer was considered to be, a necessarily good writer, but she shines above and beyond what, these other books were, okay? As far as I can see, there's not a whole lot of, racist crap. There's not a lot of, weird, stupid garbage. I mean, there's some romantic, stupid garbage, but it's like, tolerable and not, it could affect people's minds to the worst degree possible. Like, what? Yeah, it's stupid, but it's actually tolerable. And actually, if my kids were to read this, I wouldn't really mind. Now, I gotta say, there are a few stains in this book. Like, for instance, when they actually do try to tie it back to the overarching story, it gets a little stupid. But, that being said, it doesn't come until, like, the last third of the book. Which I gotta say, the last third of the book was kind of the worst part, but it still was kind of tolerable. It was kind of tragic, but also, the characters were kind of stupid for the sake of, trying to fit into what Stephanie Meyer already wrote in Eclipse. So, you kind of knew that going into this prequel, especially a prequel for Twilight. But again, there are things that are just so stupid that they are hilarious, and some things that are genuinely good within this story. So I gotta say, without a doubt, this is on top, okay? We got number one. It doesn't even edge it out, okay? It's not even close, okay? There are not necessarily, planets, but there are like countries in between these things, okay? It's that good, okay? Far and beyond what the first Twilight book was. And dare I say it, I cannot believe I'm saying this. Maybe I am in Stockholm Syndrome with these books. I don't know. But I would recommend it, okay? Just for the sake of pure insanity. If you are a fan of pure insanity when it comes to books and, somewhat good storytelling, but just an overarching just bullcrap with like Hulk smash, this is a fun ride, let me tell you. But now, ladies and gents, we arrived at the biggest and the one that kind of broke the camel's back in regards to people who were reportedly fans and then they were like, nah, I'm out, bro. Apparently, I don't know. But it's Breaking Dawn. Yep, that's right. The longest book in the franchise so far. Because, as you know, Stephanie Meyer decided to cash in on a couple more books in this franchise. Because this is the only franchise that she will write about now. I don't know. No harsh feelings towards Stephanie Meyers or whatever. But still, yeah. This is the one that broke the camel's back in regards to many people. It's Breaking Dawn. The ending that was very, very, very lackluster. Now, apparently, there is some lore, if you will, in regards to this book. As from previous videos, you could probably tell where I'm going with this. But apparently, for Twilight, Stephanie Meyer decided that, she wanted Twilight to be a standalone book, but instead of, having 3 other sequels to that book. And then, for personal reasons, I guess, she wrote a epilogue novel called Forever Dawn, which would be a kind of a better-ish title. Breaking Dawn is kind of weird, but Forever Dawn is kind of more appealing to me. I don't know why. Anyway, this book, she decided that, she would kind of not change most things in that Forever Dawn book and kind of put it in Breaking Dawn. Yeah, she released it as Breaking Dawn. Except she admittedly, I guess, didn't rewrite a lot of it, except for, the inclusion of Jacob and all that, which is kind of, spoiler alerts, the only thing that really gets the most fleshed out in regard to this book. But then again, it's not for the better. But also, what is kind of peculiar about these novels are, or this novel at least, is it's split into 3 distinct sections, which are also called books. Why? I don't know. Whatever. Like, I get it, right? This Lord of the Rings, Book 1, The Fellowship of the Ring, Book 2, The Two Towers, Book 3, The Return of the King. They are books. They are actual, long, standalone books, but coming together, it's the whole thing, the whole book, the whole novel, The Lord of the Rings. I get that. But this, no, there's not enough material in this one book to split it off into 3 books. Why? Why, Stephanie? Why? And the worst thing about it is that Book 1 is told from Bella's point of view. Book 2 is told by Jacob's point of view. Book 3, what do you think? What could you possibly believe that this longest book in this novel, the longest part in the novel, what do you think is from, which character do you think it's point of view from? Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes or 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. It's Bella. Yeah, again, why? There are 3 main characters in this story now. Edward doesn't get a book. He gets nothing in this wide realm. I don't know. Maybe she was thinking, "Oh yeah, I'll write Midnight Sun from Edward's perspective, and that'll be his book." Maybe, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. But let's get into this plot, okay? Oh gosh. Yeah, from reading this, I can see why people kind of fell off of this book. Anyway, though, so Bella is driving this huge armor-plated politician car that Edward insisted on buying her for her protection. Yep. And through all of this, she's looking at these posters of, have you seen Jacob throughout town? Because apparently, in between the third book and this book, Jacob has permanently transformed into a werewolf and has been cross-country, roaming through America and Canada just as a wolf now. But I guess because Bella's gonna marry Edward or whatever. Okay. Bella and Edward tell of her parents, I guess, that she's going to get married to Edward. Her father is 100% against it, but her mother is 100% on board with it because of young married love and all that. And okay, whatever. The book also reinterprets the whole negotiating in the previous book, which was painful to say the least. But anyway, so we hear that Edward will have sex with Bella. Finally. Oh, gosh, golly gee, kind folks. They'll finally consecrate their love after they get married and while Bella is human. Because, of course, Bella also has an offhand remark that, this whole thing looks like a shotgun wedding, but Edward's like, oh, it's not because vampires can't have children. And as we, even I know through the cringe that is the last movie that they do have a kid. So, Get ready for this. And apparently we get this whole another Lewis lore dump. Oh wait, no, it's a Meyer lore dump. A MLD, if you will. Detailing this whole other vegetarian vampire family or whatever that Edward apparently had sex with, and with this one chick from this one family, and she really, really wanted kids to the point where the Ventari, destroyed her vampiric mother because she was that desperate to have a kid. She vampirized a toddler. That's kind of bizarre, and kind of adds a lot of questions. Like, for instance, does she stay a toddler forever? If so, why? And she's gonna be like a toddler for the rest of her life, or she's gonna be small, like what that little person in what was that Marvel movie? Eternals, that's right. I was gonna say Elemental. I don't know. They're both mediocre both mediocre Disney movies. Yeah, I said it. Eternals is mediocre at best. I'm sorry. I still like it though. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, this stupid book. So yeah, a lot of questions. They just drop that toddler thing and they don't really bring anything else up. You kind of leave with that thing like, oh yeah, so this toddler is going to be a toddler for, eons now. But you don't get really a lot of confirmation, which made me go into a trance just thinking like, if this toddler is a toddler for the rest of her life, then is she a toddler for all of eternity now, or is she just small now? I'm just like, okay, thinking too hard on this book. Whatever. Anyway, but apparently this is also ties into the lore of the second life of Bree Tanner, aka the best Twilight book in existence. Let me tell you. Okay, listen, but. Yeah, apparently they got the minds of children, but they are large murder machines or whatever, So, yeah, you kind of get that, but it's also like, do they have the minds of children, or don't they get some knowledge? Don't they mature in age? Yeah, still, a lot of questions. You don't really see... I would like to see a toddler vampire just for comparison's sake, but whatever. I don't know. Then we get the wedding, and oh joy, everyone's there, everyone's great, and oh my gosh, Jacob's here. Whoa, yay! It's like he never left. Okay, great. And then Bella makes he tries to make amends with Bella, being the good Chad he tries to be, but was just assassinated in Eclipse. Now he's trying to become the good Chad again. Apologizes and all that, but then Bella, being Bella, is like, oh hey, I'm gonna have sex with Edward and all that. And then Jacob's getting all like turns the complete opposite and turns into a simp and is all like, oh no, stop, and she turns back into a werewolf, and then tries to, but then his pack comes back and is like drags him off and all that, which is just a big scene, a big dramatic soap operic scene, if you will. Joy, and we needed that anyway. So yeah, Edward takes Bella to his private island because of course he has a private island. Whatever. And then he doesn't say anything about the honeymoon. He's like, it's a surprise or whatever. Okay, and the private island, and then the cross species sex scene occurs that every teenager was hoping to see. Bella and Edward get it on, and they get it on, of course. Kind of. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. It's kind of... I look, okay, I don't have an issue with Mormons, okay? If Stephenie Meyer is Mormon, good for her, I guess, whatever. But it just gives me a very Mormon-ish thing, like a Mormon-ish taste in my mouth, or a very Christian taste in my mouth, because even though they were building up this sex, she doesn't describe it. They touch hands, basically, and then it kind of pans off to the next day, implying that they did it, but you don't really see it. And look, I'm thank God, mercifully, thank you, Stephenie Meyer, for not giving me that mental image of Edward and Bella having sex, but at the very least, the movie knew what all the teenage girls were trying to, building up to see Edward and Bella having sex. They showed Edward and Bella having sex. It's sort of like in Avengers Endgame when they're seeing this giant build up to this huge ass battle between Thanos and the Avengers and all that. We just cut over to the moon and see the moon, and then all of a sudden we see, Tony Stark's dead somehow. Yeah, that's basically it. It's kind of like that, but for teenage girls in a book. I can understand why people got a little upset with Stephenie Meyer's in this book now. Not that I was rooting for it, but I put my mind in a teenage girl, and I understand. I see the light now, teenage girls. I see the light. And it's during the next day that apparently Edward went into full lust mode, apparently, during sex, and really bruised up Bella quite a bit during that whole rampage and all that, and swears off having sex with her again because he doesn't want to bruise her anymore until she becomes a vampire. And although Bella's all into it, yeah, he doesn't want to do that. Now listen, I get it. You don't want to hurt your significant other, but if she's into it and you're not, maybe you're not so compatible after all, And I truly believe that it's in this one scene that a seed was planted in the toxic community of E.L. James when she created the worst trilogy of all time, at least in my eyes, the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. Because yes, that was Twilight fanfiction. And it spawned 3 movies. 3 books and 3 movies. All with BDSM, all just awful. But then we find out one day, Bella wakes up and, oh my gosh, she's pregnant. Yep, she's not just, it's like 9 months away, pregnant. Oh gosh, it's about to burst type of pregnant. And I'm like, what? And apparently this whole thing goes down where she's like, yeah, maybe the vampiric women can't get pregnant or whatever, but the vampire men can, and they just haven't had the cross species, deed yet and all that type of thing. Okay. I got over the whole, sparkly skin or whatever. I got over the whole character assassination of Jacob or whatever. But this is where I draw the line, okay? Vampires are dead. They're basically walking zombies, but with better brains, okay? In this world. You mean to tell me that Edward's sperm is still alive and still kicking? Why are you making me think of Edward's sperm, Stephenie Meyer? Why? Dare I say this is probably worse than seeing Edward and Bella do the deed. Anyway, Edward's like, oh, we gotta cut this baby out right now, because that thing will tear her apart from the inside out or whatever, and then we're all just like, why? Okay, whatever, let's see where this goes. And, I guess Bella really wants to have Edward's baby, but Edward's like, oh, no, we gotta cut it out. So, yeah, we get Bella calling her sister, be all like, hey, can you protect me? Because I don't think Edward will give me a choice. Because why shouldn't a person have free choice in the matter? Of course, anyway. So, yeah, getting political here. And then, that's where the book one ends of this book. And look, I gotta admit, I was having kind of the best time with this book. Honestly, I was, after the second life of Bree Tanner, I was like, okay, this series is just a romp. This series is just absolutely hilarious now. Okay, nothing and everything can happen. What does Stephanie Meyers have up her sleeve now? And then we get this just, oh my gosh. First of all, the Avengers Endgame battle that we have, okay, the whole building up to Edward and Bella having sex, like Bella basically begging Edward for 3 gigantic novels. They're not really gigantic, but they seem pretty gigantic in retrospect. These, 3 novels of begging Edward to have sex. They finally do, and she doesn't even, show it. Is just atrocious. I know why, teenage girls kind of jumped off the bandwagon with that, because, yeah, I mean, all that buildup and you don't see it, that would make me mad too. And then, oh gosh, then at the very end of this book one in this last book here, now Stephanie Meyers decides to put in social commentary here with giving women free choice. Maybe it's because I just live in 2023 or 2024 and I'm just absolutely abysmal by the politicalness of it. But listen, okay, I don't know if it was supposed to be political commentary or something, but if you're going to do it now, after 3 books of Bella just being impulsive and just being all around, just all about Edward to the point where she doesn't even have a character anymore, now you're going to give us some political commentary? No, okay? No, wow, no. You have not earned that. No. Gosh, what the hell? But then we're going to move on to book 2 in the 4th book of this quadrilogy, I suppose. Yes, it's the only POV switch in this entire saga, other than the short second life of Bree Tanner, aka the best of the entire saga, I guess, technically. And in this one, we find it's Jacob. Yes, Jacob, the Giga Chad of this entire saga for a book, and then really fell off the bandwagon in Eclipse, and now is still being his normal garbage self. Whatever. Anyway, we find Jacob. He's just chilling, trying to, awaiting his precious Bella, coming back, planning whether or not the werewolves are going to attack and all that, finding out if Bella's dead or undead, if you will. And then, they start the attack and all that and yada, yada, whatever. And then, I guess more werewolves are being imprinted or, imprinting on people and all that than previously realized. And, we get the special hangout with his personal bro, Quill, who is the one that imprinted on a toddler who is now age 3. So, yeah. And listen, okay, it's not, I'm just going to interrupt this, okay? Listen, we've been through a lot, right? We've been through Bella, just, teenaged, unaliving, if you will. so she can get closer to her boy toy, I suppose. You know, that type of thing. We've been through the beta-ness of Jacob and all that, and just the emotional whirlwind that is, you know, this teenage angst, if you will. But this section right here is literally the most cringiest, the weirdest, the most awful storyline in the entire saga up to this point. Okay, I could barely get through it. Listen, okay, I went through the new moon with Bella trying to do some really awful garbage to herself, okay, that I do not recommend. I went through the character assassination of Jacob and Eclipse, but it's this right here that made me want to put these series down and made me contemplate on making this video to begin with. Listen, okay, I've never wanted to not do that, okay? I've never in my life wanted to not make a video this bad, but you know what? I'm pushing through it because I'm just so far in, and I'm not going to have these books on my shelf anymore for nothing. We're pushing through it, okay? We're pushing through it, but I gotta say, Quinn or Quill, whoever his name is, I forget. I just honestly forgot, but Quill babysitting a 17-year-old, babysitting a 3-year-old that he intends to mate with later on in life is the worst thing in this entire saga. I'm putting my foot down right here with this. This is the most cringiest thing I've ever read in my life. And yes, I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey. Who knows? Maybe if these videos do well, I might do that too. Whatever. But where was I again? Oh, okay. Back to the story, I guess. So apparently word comes back to the pack, quack pack, if you will. Back to the pack that apparently Bella is back, but she's being isolated due to a disease, unknown disease, and all that, which some of the werewolves are kind of deciphering is like, oh, wait, hang on. Maybe this would kind of fit the mold here for, changing Bella into a vampire and all that type of doodad stuff, thus breaking the treaty and thus, starting the war, and also saying, hey, to the relatives, hey, she died because of this disease, this rare disease or whatever. So yeah, there's that too. But for some reason, the werewolves decide not to attack because even though I guess Bella is breaking the treaty or whatever, Bella was put into this thing on her own free will. So at least there's that. Okay. And Jacob, he's all like, this poor soul. Stephanie Meyer, what did you do to this man? Anyway, so he decides to go and just kill as many Collins as possible because he's beta now, whatever. And he finds out the truth that, Bella is still alive. She's still human, but she is being literally torn apart from the inside out because her baby is half vampire and all that. And apparently they all find out that there's legends that have transpired with this type of thing. Now they do, but apparently you can't do that. Like, she can't bring the pregnancy to term because the baby is going to literally tear her apart. Yeah. Okay. And even though, Edward wants to take the baby out, a abortion, if you will. And, her sister, Bella's sister and all that is acting as her bodyguard and all that. So they don't do that. But, Edward then makes a deal with Jacob, saying that if Jacob can talk her out of having this baby, then Edward will share Bella, and Jacob can impregnate her with his baby. Am I almost done? No, I'm halfway through this book. Oh no. Oh gosh. But then the caveat is, if everything doesn't go according to plan and Bella dies, then, Jacob can kill Edward and all that. So, okay, cool. Whatever. Anyway, so Jacob is at first repulsed by this, but then goes along with the plan because, of course, he's now beta as all hell. So there's that. And, of course, thank God above that Bella actually says no to this. At least she has some self-respect left in her character. Finally. Thank you. And then I guess Jacob goes back to the pack and tells them what's going on and all that. And, I guess the werewolves are just like, okay, time to attack now because, we don't know what's inside her and it might be a gigantic monster. Well, we gotta destroy it. But even though Jacob, wants to protect Bella, and wants that thing out of her too, apparently, he's like, no, let's keep Bella, alive and all that and stop that. But apparently the Alpha uses his Alpha powers to, how should I put this? Telepathize? Like, use his telepathy to, use the werewolves to do his bidding and all that. But apparently Jacob's lineage is so thoroughbred with his werewolf abilities that he now has the choice of becoming an alpha. Okay, and then activates his alpha powers to go against the alpha and start his own pack. I have no words. Deus Ex Machina, I guess. And, I guess a couple people joined Jacob's pack and all that, so we'll put that... Okay, let's put a pin in that, okay? We'll put a little pin right there with those two people that joined Jacob's pack. The end. Let's continue. So, I do say, okay, that the babysitting the 3-year-old, the 17-year-old, or whatever, that is the hardest I have ever cringed reading anything in my entire life. And I've read the ending of Grapes of Wrath, and that was just utterly bizarre in my opinion, but gosh, this takes the cake, okay? But the ending of this book came very close. Let me tell you what, okay? This is the end of not the Breaking Dawn, not the end of this book, but the end of the Jacob Hart book, whatever you want to call it. Yes, this almost took the cake, okay? I can't believe that I'm saying this, but there is a scene that is almost worse, if not as worse, as that babysitting, grooming scene crap thing, whatever. So the rest of this book, the Jacob book, not the Breaking Dawn book, thank God. But the rest of the Jacob book is about... I know it's really confusing. Blame Stephanie Meyer. Anyway, the rest of the book is about Bella's birth, or Bella giving birth, and yeah, it's very... it's very utterly bizarre and very horrific, if you will. Horrific indeed. So, Bella is, screaming and, she's in gigantic pain, and Jacob, comes to her aid as well and all that, and decides, you know what, hey, since this thing that's inside her is a vampire, let's see if she can drink blood and, quench the kid's thirst and all that. So Bella drinks blood, and the baby, subsides, and she's better and all that, and Bella seems better and all that, whatever. Edward can read the baby's mind now. Why he couldn't do that before, whatever. Anyway, so now he can read the mind of the baby, and the kid has a fondness for her mother, and Edward thinks, oh, wait, maybe killing the kid is not necessarily the best move now either, because, she actually does love the mother and all that. So, yeah, so killing the kid, that's a red X now. And it's here that, Bella's health is, continuing to not improve, going back downhill, to the point where the vampire's kicks, the baby's vampire kicks, basically crushes her spine and makes Bella basically, I guess, suffocates and all that, and makes the baby suffocate as well. And they're both about to literally die. And it gets graphic. It gets extremely graphic. And right before Bella passes out, she asks for a emergency C-section. And this is the point of no return, okay? Listen. Okay. This is the part where it gets even worse. And I know, okay, I'm a man. I would never know the joys of bringing a child into the world, but I've also witnessed a lot of births, and they don't get as graphic as this. Let me tell you, okay, just I can't even begin to describe what exactly happens. It is just utterly atrocious. So, yeah, content warning for this, because, yeah, it's going to get real juicy. So, the doctor is out of commission. He's on his doctoral rounds or whatever. So, Edward, Jacob, and this other chick, I guess, needs to do it themselves. Okay, and on top of everything, the placenta is made up out of, this diamond vampiric hide or whatever. It's made out of diamond vampiric stuff, and the only stuff that can, cut it is vampiric fingernails and vampiric teeth. So, they literally rip her open and cut the baby out and do all that type of stuff. The girl gets a taste of Bella's blood and wants to, just completely eat her up, I guess. But Jacob punts her across the room to lay off of her and all that. And, so Bella's basically dead after all that. And, they take the baby out. And Edward then decides to inject a syringe of his vampiric, venom, I guess, straight into her heart. And then starts doing CPR to get all that stuff go all throughout her body. All right, that's the end of the content warning. What the actual hell? What? Oh my gosh. Anyway, then Jacob runs down to try to get the kill the baby or whatever for what happened to Bella, and immediately imprints upon her, because why the hell not? And yeah, so right as that happens, Bella awakens from, her transformation as a vampire and, recovers and all that, and she becomes a vampire. The end of this book. What the actual hell is this? if I was ranking, like, if this was actually, like, its own book, okay, this would be at the bottom. Like, very, very close to the bottom of, like, perpetual hell, okay? This is, like, the worst thing one of the worst things I've ever read. And that's saying a lot, because I've been through this whole saga, and I was like, okay, this is bad, but it's, whatever. This is garbage. This is actual, like, toilet trash right here, okay? Listen. And you may be wondering why I put the whole Leia thing, put the pin in the Leia thing. That's just because I needed a break, okay? I've been just yelling to the high heavens, old man yelling at a cloud for so long that I needed just, I needed a breather, okay? I need a little symbolism of hope here, just a little break. But also, I guess it kind of worked out, because this whole Leia storyline kind of exemplifies my frustration with a lot of these stories, like a lot of these character stories that have gone over throughout this entire Twilight saga, if you will. And I'll just briefly mention summarize this story, because it's actually started in Eclipse, but I kind of brushed it over because this type of thing was kind of implanted in the back of my mind, I mean, it worked out for the end, okay? It worked out for the end here. So, Leia, she is a werewolf, and in fact, the first female werewolf. Yes. And the backstory of her is that she used to be the Alpha's main bae, if you will, who is also named Sam. I finally found the worst Sam in all of fiction, but here we are. Anyway, they were dating and all that, but then Sam, imprinted on Emily. So now they're together, and now, Leia, she's now, after that whole thing transpired, turns out she's also a werewolf. And the reason why, a lot of her angst and all that was coming on after the breakup was because she was transforming into a werewolf. And it's also implied throughout this entire series that all werewolves are now, like, telepathic intertwined, I guess. They can read everyone's minds and emotions and all that type of stuff. So, yeah. Not only is she, her ex, like a very toxic ex, is now, her alpha, where she has to obey him and everything. But now she has to relive the memories of Sam and Emily having sex, because of course they had sex and all that, and their love for each other, and it's very torturous, okay? There's no way she can get out of it, so she's kind of trapped. It's also told through us that Leia can't have kids because she's a werewolf, and she feels like she's half a woman because she can't birth kids, which is another problematic thing. Like, let me just pull some mental health gymnastics on you, okay? Some good mental health thing. If any of you can't have kids, that shouldn't, define you, okay? You should just go out and just be you, okay? It doesn't matter if you can make kids or whatever, you shouldn't feel, less of a person because you can't have kids. You are you, okay? And you should just be the special person you are, okay? Making kids, that's not necessarily the end-all be-all, okay? So don't even worry about it. And I'm not a therapist, okay? But if you're having some issues with that, please go see a therapist. But anyway, it's also implied that she can't have a period either. And since she's the only female werewolf in existence, she can't share it with anyone. She can't talk it over with anyone. And because they're all intertwined with their minds and all that, whatever she thinks about it, she's just bombarded by the men and all that, and just saying, ew, gross, telepathically speaking and all that. And so she can't even think about her issues. This is the worst. This is literally the worst. I'm not a woman, okay? I'm a cisgendered male. And even I have to say, this is just ewy. This is gross. This is just ewy. No, I don't like this. And it's only through Jacob that she finally gets her salvation, and she can finally cut loose from Sam and all that. You know, and when, you know, the people try to convince these 3 defectors to come back, Leia's like, no, and that's it. That's literally the end of her story. That's literally... So, listen, okay? I can forgive, you know, terrible, horrible garbage that happens to people if there's good redemption or a good story or something like that to kind of redeem or teach a lesson or whatever, something, anything to happen. But it literally amounts to nothing. Leia is barely mentioned for the rest of the book. That's it. This one storyline here exemplifies everything that is wrong with this series. Even though these books are gigantic, if you look at them, they're gigantic, okay? Even though these books are gigantic, they don't amount to anything. There's storylines, there are plot points that are decent enough, okay, but they don't follow up and teach good lessons. They don't teach good stories. They don't show good stories. It all amounts to literally nothing. A lot of deus ex machinas, a lot of garbage, a lot of terrible messages for kids because these messages are half-baked to begin with. And it's just utterly terrifying. It terrifies me, the fact that there are so many, you know, teenage girls who've read these books and found solace within these books because the lessons that are taught here are just horrendous. They are just utterly horrible. And we're not even halfway through Breaking Dawn. Pray for me. Here we go. So now we have a redo of the birthing scene from the previous Jacob-centered book. From Bella's perspective this time. Wonderful. And we also see, from her point of view, what it is like turning into a vampire. Once again, thank you. We really needed that. And, you know, from the second short life of Bree Tanner, thank God, we get a little tidbits from that. You know, we see, you know, Edward's family, the Cullens or whatever, they're just like, oh, shoot, Bella, we don't want to, you know, hurt you or anything like that, you know? She's just like walking on eggshells around her because, as we know, from the second short life of Bree Tanner, the best thing in this entire saga. I will not stop praising the great works of this short story. But anyway, as we know, the newer vampires, they're very blood hungry, thirsty, and they're all ready to just jack up everything, you know, just tear apart the world or whatever. But apparently, Bella has entirely skipped this thing here. This transformation segment here. Okay. Yeah, she's calm, cool, and collected. Yep. There we are, I guess. And they force her to go hunting for the first time and all that before even seeing her baby. Okay. I don't know anymore. Let's just continue. The only time her rage actually does come out, though, is when she finds out that Jacob has imprinted upon her newly born child. and rightfully so. Almost decking him across the room or whatever, but Seth gets in the way and breaks his arm in the process and all that, which I gotta say, out of the sheer insanity that was Jacob's book, okay, finally some levity, some common sense within this novel. Finally, thank God, it comes with this. And I know there is that meme that came out of the, I guess, Breaking Dawn Part 2 movie where you name my kid after the Loch Ness Monster. That was, I gotta say, while reading that, just imagining that scene with the Loch Ness Monster, it was a sore sight to behold. I actually smiled while reading it. Not for the sake of good writing or good storytelling or whatever, but just the fact that it was very meme-worthy, I gotta say. Unfortunately, though, this is short-lived because, we find out later on that, Bella's fine with the fact that her daughter will eventually marry Jacob. And apparently it's okay for this imprinting to happen. There's a real Native American tribe. Let me just say this. There's a real Native American tribe that Stephanie Meyer chose to portray in this novel. And the fact that they use imprinting is nowhere in their culture. So this is just cringe to the nth degree, honestly, and I'm kind of sick and tired of imprinting. So I'm not going to say anything else about imprinting anymore because I am at that point of pure insanity. My last brain cell is on the rise here. Let's just move on. But before we do, want to know why Jacob calls her Nessie? I found this out in this book. It's because Bella decides to name the kid Renesmee because they combine the grandmother's first names into Renesmee, and the Ness is Nessie. So there you go. That's the origin of the Loch Ness Monster. It's the little things. It's the little things that brighten my day nowadays. Speaking of Renesmee, or as I will call her now, the Loch Ness Monster, she fastly develops and really grows a lot, developing babies within weeks. She becomes a baby 9 weeks old in a day or something. So there's that, and she also apparently portrays a lot of cognitive thought nowadays, especially since she was born a day ago, but whatever, I guess. And apparently her superpower, because of course vampires have to have superpowers now, she can transmit images or past emotions or memories or whatever into another person via touch. So there you go. Who knew that a garbage superpower could exist worse than transforming into any type of water in existence, aka the Wonder Twins, if you will. Yeah, that's worse. And then, the Cullens, apparently, they build a house so Edward and Bella can, just do the Harlem Shake, do the vampire shake, if you will. And yeah, apparently we find out that the Cullens, they really, really, really love doing the vampire shake. They just hide it very, very well. And I gotta say, out of everything, this is the one where I feel the most uncomfortable within this saga. Not cringeworthy, not the worst thing I've ever read, of course, that's all in the Jacob part of this book. But this is the most just, I feel numb now. I feel numb after the Jacob book that I'm just like, I can't even feel how cringe and how terrible this is. So, okay, let's move on. So, even though Bella is progressing as a vampire very, very well, to the point where we all are asking ourselves, why did it take 3.5 gigantic books for this thing to happen? But here we are. It's also established that, yeah, maybe it's a little too dangerous to go back to your friends and family and all that, and probably should skip out with Edward and the kid for a couple decades, so, you don't have to really handle that or whatever. But apparently, Jacob and his royal... Oh, gosh. My dude, no. He decides that, he should transform into a werewolf and invite the father of Bella's father, over to see the newlyweds and the kid. Yeah. Okay. But apparently the Cullens, they hide enough so that this poor mustached father figure here it's just decides, you know what, I'm gonna live in blatant ignorance because I don't care exactly what's going on, okay? Just as long as you're happy and healthy and the kid's happy and healthy, whatever. As long as the daughter's, the daughter's weird, the kid's weird, but you know what? I'm just going to live in blatant ignorance, whatever. And it's because of all this that, Bella can have her cake and eat it too, that she forgives Jacob for endangering her father and her kid. Okay. Yes, we're back to the normal Twilight garbage now. Okay. It was like the book was naked for a second, and we got it back. Okay, it's back. And apparently, according to Stephanie Myers, this is the hardest thing she ever had to write. Apparently, 3 months later, because she hates skipping time or whatever. Okay, that's the hardest thing you have ever had to write. I can't even anymore. I just want to get this over with. Let's move on. So, Renesmee is apparently rapidly growing and will apparently reach adulthood in 6 years and will apparently stop aging. Why? Hey, your guess is as good as mine, okay? I've read more Twilight than I ever want to admit to anyone ever again, okay? So I'm done. I'm done trying to decipher the lore. Deus Ex Machina, the end. Well, okay, come on, let's continue. And apparently it's during a hunting trip between Jacob, Bella, and the kid that apparently this vampiric woman that's apparently, hinted at before, but now she's center stage now, who apparently, I guess the vampire that got destroyed in New Moon by the werewolves and all that was her bae, I guess, whatever. But anyway, she sees the new child thinking that she's like a vampiric kid and all that. So she tattles on them to the Venturi over here, okay? Because apparently that's another big no-no. The rules. You gotta stick to the rules now, but the rules don't care other times, but the rules care now. God. So they start forming a plan, because the Venturi are coming, and they decide to form an army of werewolves and vampires together so that they can take down the Ventari, because of course they do. Because I guess everything's happy-go-lucky now. Whatever. However, you may be wondering, well, they're going up against a huge army, what about that vampire that can, see into the future and all that? Yeah, she cheeses out of it with Jasper and all that. So yeah, there you go. She's gone, but she leaves a note. Don't worry, she leaves a note. But of course, the vampires are all like, "Oh wait, hey, she cheesed it out because it's the end times and all that." So, okay. But apparently, get this, the notes was apparently written out of a torn page from I guess this vampire's edition of The Merchant of Venice. So Bella goes into that book, The Merchant of Venice, and realizes there's a second note. And then they apparently have to go and do this other thing, this whole, I don't know, Da Vinci Code-esque, like, thing here, this quest thing that apparently leads up to literally nothing. Yeah. The Cullens, I guess they talk with the Ventari and all that, and Renesmee also apparently just zooms the truth telepathetically into their minds and all that, and so there you go. So, and also apparently Bella can use her vampiric powers to create a force field around the family and friends and all that, and she can stop the telepathy off of the Ventari or whatever. And apparently it takes years to master, but she takes days, so of course she's the best vampire of all time. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry. It was actually the whole Cullens or whatever. They Renesmee zoomed the truth to all the people in there. Plot points are very blending together. Okay, I'm sorry, but apparently, everyone has like a giant council, if you will, to just lay down their arms and say, "Hey, we'll fight to the death, even when anything goes awry or whatever." And Edward tries to train Bella, but he can't because he can't bear the sight of fighting her as an opponent and all that. Oh gosh. And here it comes, the big huge thing here, the werewolves and the vampires versus the Ventari, and independent vampires that have seen the crime and will witness the punishment and all that type of deal. And apparently the Ventari, they're all like they've wanted an excuse to take out the Cullens for eons, and now they finally got that. Joy to the world. Okay, so there's a lot of hoopla here, so I'm just going to summarize this whole thing, okay? So, the Ventari, they tried to, get the Cullens on breaking the rules of vampiricness and whatever, but apparently, she's not, Renesmee is not a vampire, so there you go. So they try to get them on technicalities or whatever, and the technicality that they fall on is that we don't know what a half-human, half-vampire will become and all that. So, yeah, they gotta take them out. So they try to do a little bit of attacks, but they can't do anything through Bella's force field and all that. And then the telepathy vampire, she comes back with a half-human, half-vampire. So, yeah, everything's good. And they show them that, yeah, he's a good guy. And, the Ventari, they go home. Yes. That's it. Apparently, the best thing in this entire movie saga was an original concept where the vampires and the werewolves fight the Ventari and all that. That doesn't happen in the book. Because of course it doesn't. The one thing I was looking forward to, even if it was like just a wet blanket, like pulling a rug out from under me, like it was just a dream sequence or whatever. I was looking forward to it, but of course, nothing. Nothing. Great. And yeah, that's basically it. They apparently Jacob is willing to wait 6 years for the consummation of Renesmee's and Jacob's love, and Bella can now like completely control the whole vampiric, I guess, mind control thing that she had or whatever. So she lets Edward read her mind for the first time, and Edward sees how much she loves him, and then they live happily ever after. The end. Can you tell this book divided the fan base? And yes, I can, because this book was just absolute garbage either way. This is not only my least favorite book in the entire saga up to this point, this is my least favorite book of all time. Yes. Not because of it's so bad it's good. Don't get me wrong, okay? There are many hilarious scenes, like for instance, the Loch Ness Monster thing, that got to me a little. But just the fact that A, it's racist, B, it endorses grooming, and C, this late in the game, it tries so hard to be feminist and try to have Bella speak up for herself is just, it's too little too late. Okay? No. I'm sorry. No. And I gotta say, there are scenes within this book that are so bad, they are basically etched in my mind probably for the rest of my life. It's gonna be living free, rent-free in my brain for the rest of my life. Thank you, Stephanie. You ruined my brain. That being said, minus the sexism, minus the racism, all that, minus the grooming, all that bull crap or whatever, I do have to acknowledge the fact that I commend Stephanie Meyer on how she ended her story. She ended the story how she wanted to end the story. There are many different vampire shows and stories or whatever that show, a big gigantic climactic ending and all that, but instead she tried to focus on the battle of the minds and all that, and she didn't want anybody to, necessarily die as a result from it, which, while it's not written well, I commend her on, following through on how she wanted her story to end. Despite many people wanting it to end a certain way, she ended it her way. And I gotta say, no bad feelings there, okay? Just the racism, sexism, and the whole grooming thing. That, yeah, but otherwise, it's, you do you, okay? You do you. Oh, and by the way, the whole side quest thing that basically amounted to nothing was basically trying to find the half vampire, half human thing. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take a whole lot for me to say how they found him, right? Yep, there you go. But the worst part about this book, I mean, there's a lot of bad things, but there's one thing that I haven't mentioned yet that is really wrong with this book, is that even though, okay, I commend her on, the mental gymnastics or whatever, right? Even though she couldn't write to save her life, but that's not the ending battle. That's just delaying the inevitable. Yeah, the Volturi peace out, but they say they're going to come back later on down the road. So they didn't stop it, they just delayed it. So really, it's not the ending. So yeah, and apparently, according to one of her many insider, interviews that she's done, she apparently is floating the idea around for doing like a spin-off book on how to, definitively destroy the Ventari and all that, but I think that's come a little too late, Steph. Yeah. But honestly, I'm glad this entire saga is over. And trust me, the short second life of Bree Tanner, that is so bad it's good, with a few redeeming elements. Then you got Twilight, and then everything just keeps on going down and down and down to the pits of hell. But if you think we're done, we're not done quite yet, kind folks, because we got 2 more books to decipher and get into, because of course we do. Stephanie just can't let a good thing die, or a bad thing die. Okay, before we do that, we gotta go into a little bit of history. Thank God. I can't believe I prefer real life as opposed to fantasy, but here we are. So basically, outside of Twilight, Stephanie Meyer hasn't written necessarily all that much. She wrote a couple books, like for instance, The Host, which also had a movie adaptation, came out the same year as Breaking Dawn came out, which was the same year that Twilight the film came out. So at least they got a complete story, unlike Game of Thrones, but still, whatever. And she also wrote The Chemist in 2016, which I could not find anything about, nor do I want to, because as a person who knows way too much about Twilight, and even The Host now, which is basically a sci-fi version of Twilight, I don't want to. I don't want to know what The Chemist is, okay? Can I have that dignity still? Please? Thank you? Anyway. But in between then and now, she's been kicking around 2 basically opposite ideas. One was that her critics, when she actually listened to her critics and didn't, live in her own bubble, some of them were kind of saying, apparently Edward wouldn't do the same thing if he was like a girl or something, that they would kind of look at him a lot different if he was a girl or whatever, or something like that. So in between 2016 and 2008 and 2016, she developed something for the fans for Twilight's 10th anniversary, Life and Death, a Twilight reimagined. I was about to say a Twilight story, but that's the Star Wars. What am I talking about? And she was also kicking around this idea for a Twilight book, but from Edward's perspective. And supposedly, it was called Midnight Sun, and everyone was just up, the fandom was up roaring and praising it, and it was like, where are we gonna get it? But apparently, I think there was a couple of leaks that kind of happened or something, where where Stephanie was just like, yeah, listen, I'm not gonna publish it now because the leaks happened. Also, what we really haven't touched upon quite yet, 50 Shades of Grey also started its publishing thing, and since it was basically Twilight fan fiction, and Stephanie Meyer does not like E.L. James nor 50 Shades of Grey, let me tell you, E.L. James, published 50 Shades of Grey, but from Christian Grey's perspective, and it was called Grey, and because Grey was around, Stephanie was like, no, I'm not going to publish Midnight Sun anymore. But lo and behold, as of 2020, it was finally published. Midnight Sun was released into the ethos, if you will, in all of its glory. So we have 2 different interpretations of Twilight. And Lord of the Rings has only one. How is this possible? But yes, I indulged for the kind folks, and I read both of these books. God help us all. So we're going to start out with Life and Death, the first thing that came out that was Twilight adjacent, if you will. And yes, this is the one where There is a ton of... The gender is all mixed up, except for certain people. Like, for instance, Charlie, a.k.a. the boss, the man, the father of Bella / the one that shall not be named yet, because I need to go into that. But anyway, Charlie is still the father because apparently Stephanie described, hey, being born at this certain time and all that, it's going to be kind of difficult to gain custody of a kid, during that time when you're constantly moving and all that type of stuff. So yeah, we're going to be, just kind of leaving those as it is, which I gotta say is probably the smartest decision that Stephanie Meyer has ever made in writing for a very considerable amounts. At least in the Twilight Saga. I have not, again, haven't read The Chemist, know somewhat of the host. But again, in Twilight specifically, this is the smartest decision I've seen. And a lot of forethought into that. So good job, Stephanie Meyer, gold star. There you go. Now, there's a lot of people that have very different names, but instead of just telling you what each and every character is, even though they do certain things, I'm not going to really divulge every single aspect of what happened, because it's basically the same story, just played out slightly differently. So instead, we're just going to divulge into the main three, okay? We got Bella, who now is a boy and is named Beaufort. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but Beaufort. We're just going to go with that, Beaufort. Edward is now Edine. I guess Edine? No, it's Edith. Okay, there we go. But we got to keep in mind here, okay? It's spelled with a Y instead of an I and an E at the end. So, Edith with a Y and an E at the end. So, yeah, they really... if they make a movie on this, they really want you to know how Edith is spelled, okay? Listen. And, of course, Jacob, although he doesn't have a whole lot of, story within this story, even though he becomes a major character later on, I guess, whatever. I'll just say who Jacob is. Jacob is Julie, which is probably the closest to the most real name, possibly, of everybody in the cast now, including Charlie. I'm sorry, I've lost all sense of hope now. Now I'm just reading this weird, basically fan fiction of these books. I've lost all sense of reality. Please call the authorities. I've lost my mind. Anyway, it basically plays out almost exactly the same, with a few minor differences. Like, for instance, Edith is actually a lot better-ish than Edward. She's a lot less stalkery. She, instead of just, doing a lot of weird, creepy things, she does less creepy things, or doesn't do certain things like, watch people sleep. So there's that. But as previously mentioned, there are a few differences within the story. So let's just point them out, shall we? For instance, when Charlie was picking up Beau, as he likes to be called, apparently, he bumps into this tattooed guy, and his girlfriend, just kind of gives him the stank eyes, and then she sees Charlie, and then they both kind of go off, which is setting up something for later on. It's pretty lazy. It's almost like it's copy and pasted into this story, but whatever. I guess. Okay. And I don't think I mentioned this particular part of the story, but, in the Twilight book, okay, Edward smells Bella for the first time and he's all like, oh gosh, I just want her so bad, But Bella's like, all I smell is my strawberry shampoo, which is just, is probably like the most awful smelling shampoo I could possibly imagine. It's so fruity. It's almost like a artificial strawberry scent or something. It just reminds me of strawberry shortcake. I don't know why. Anyway, instead of that, we basically get the exact same scene, except all Bo can smell is his detergent. Which I gotta say, no. Okay, I can actually comment on this now, okay? Because I'm a guy. And I'll tell you something, okay? Middle schoolers, they are all about the Axe body spray, okay? You will find middle schoolers just smelling up the wazoo. But when you get to high school, okay, you will smell Axe body spray, especially during 2005, okay? Listen. This is the time when guys are like, oh yeah, I should probably smell better than body odor. So yeah, spray on that Axe. Spray in that Axe. Or hell, I knew people in high school, kids in high school, who put on cologne, okay? Listen, cologne, anybody? Okay? Especially if this Bo kid is a skinny, trendy hipster, okay? You can bet your bottom dollar he's packing a woodland pine cologne, okay? Listen, okay? Come on now. Not perfume, cologne. Okay, there you go. But then later on, there's this shopping scene or whatever that that basically translates into Bella trying to avoid being sexually, cornered and all that type of thing. Let's put it that way. And while reading, I was like, gee, I wonder how Stephanie is going to change this. So she changes the shopping to guys' movie night because this person has no idea what guys do by themselves without girls. Okay, listen, we're jumping the hog. Okay, we're getting on that motorcycle. We're going Zoom. Okay, we're going to the town. We're just going donuts in the parking lot over here. I mean, come on now, cranking up those tunes. Getting that Jeep Wrangler, going mudding over here. I mean, come on. What are you talking about? Guys, movie night? What do you think we're watching? Fast and Furious? No, we're listening to that soundtrack where we go mudding, Stephanie. Come on now. But anyway, apparently, the Bo gets jumped by the guy that he bumped into in the airport because apparently they think that he's a cop and he witnessed their crime that they committed. So now they gotta just take him out. Which I gotta say, Stephanie, for all of us in the real world, okay, people have gotten jumped for far less. Sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then you get jumped. You don't need like a huge asinine setup for this. The hell you doing? And so, Edith, she comes in, just busts some ass, and there you go, the end. And basically, it kind of follows along the same plot and all that. All the girls ask out this guy, which I gotta say, okay, if girls came up to me in, I don't know, when I went to school, in high school, which was like 2012, something like that, I would be like, thank you. Thank you for asking. Hell yeah, I would like to go out on a date with you. Because I don't know where Stephanie Meyer grew up. In fact, I could probably research it, but I'm not going to. But I can rest assure you that where I grew up, girls don't necessarily ask the guys out, although it should be the same. It's kind of not. It's a very rare occurrence when a girl actually asks a guy out. But yeah, so anyway, this other person, just boasts around, just like saying, "Hey, I asked Bo out and all that." But then apparently he stomps into the cafeteria and gives this huge speech about how this shouldn't happen and how dare you use me for revenge or whatever. And I'm just like, the hell is this? And this is also where the changes also start to show some effect. Like, for instance, Bo is apparently 6 feet tall, at least, and can play basketball. And Edith is a very petite, girl, if you will. And, the whole Spire Monkey thing, that thing, she actually has to do a little bit of gymnastics in order for this to happen. She can't carry him, but ish, like Edward does with Bella or whatever, but he puts, it's more of a sensual type of thing here where, Bo actually has to grab onto her waist and all that and kind of like become like not a backpack, but kind of like a camper backpack. If you don't know, then lucky you. There's also more of a thing about sex. There's more mention on sex in this book than there was in the Twilight book, which kind of shocked me, honestly. The fact that they were being so translucent with that, because that's the whole thing that this entire 4-book saga, if you will, has been about. So I was just like, that's actually kind of refreshing. Another thing is that, Edith, for the most part, is actually a better Edward. I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that she's more in her own element, I guess. Like, she's very confident in herself. She's not like, brooding or just a troubled man or whatever. She's kind of like sits on Bo's lap and all that. And she's very, confident in herself and a genuine, pleasant person to be around, to the point where her and Bo are kind of, why are you after Bo? It's kind of like those rom-coms or whatever, like these beautiful babes are like all over these nerds, and I'm just like, why are you all over this nerd right here? It doesn't make sense. And then, basically plays out the exact same, where there's the baseball thing, the bad guys show up, and yada, 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 whatever, they go into this warehouse, whatever, basically plays out the same thing, and the end. And actually, the last 15 pages is the part where it gets a lot more different, to the point where I'm just like, why is it so short? Because there's plenty of material here for a second book, or perhaps a part 2, or even making the book longer, because you can technically make as long of a book as you want, Stephanie Meyer, and no one would question you. But I guess you gotta fit the quota, I guess. I don't know. So Bo actually gets the vampiric, venom into her system and all, or his system and all that. I keep on forgetting. Bo is a boy, Bella is a girl. There we go. But Bo, the venom's actually gotten way too far into his system and all that, and he actually turns into a vampire. Yeah, if Edith tries to suck it out, suck it all out, he would die of blood loss. But apparently he's also puking a lot, and he's rolling around in vomit. So there you go. That's the gross out whatever drama that we all love Stephanie Meyer for. Thank you for that mental image. And then after this, we get a huge Lewis lore dump again. We got the Meyer lore dumps now, I'm famous for those. But now This one, I think, tops the cake because we get all the history of the Ventari in like 2 pages when it took like 4 gigantic books in the, the saga, if you will. She literally dumps it all out in 2 pages, which is the most dense pages I have read in a very long time. That being, Twilight and whatever, but still dense. The densest pages I've read from Stephanie Meyer, by all means, okay? But also now apparently the Ventari now have this a vampire named Melee who can take the powers from other vampires and put them into other people, I guess, other vampires. So they automatically they kill off certain vampires or whatever, and now the Ventari are like 2/3 female now or whatever. So yeah, there's certain things that kind of just transpire over the course of these 15 pages and all that. So yeah, there's this mental patient that was from the first book. It's now a mental doctor now. Okay, and there's a person, Ernest, falls off the cliff and all that. There's the person who gets attacked by the bear. I don't even know anymore, man. I want this to be over so bad. We're almost there. And basically that's it. Yeah, apparently Bo now goes back to Forks, but he can no longer see his family. And yeah, that's it. That's all she wrote. Literally all she wrote. Now, to be fair, okay, putting all my critiques aside for now, let me just put it out there that Stephanie Meyer didn't necessarily have to do it, okay? She was approached by her publisher or whatever to just say, hey, you want to write something for the 10th anniversary for the Twilight book so we can publish this and all that type of thing. And she's like, no, actually, I want to give the fans something more, So she wrote this book. Now, sometimes there's some interesting changes, but then there are other changes that are just like, okay, she literally copy and pasted or word searched the name Bella and changed it to Bo, and that's it. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's kind of different enough where I can say I'm glad fans got what they wanted, I guess, but it's also not different enough where I can say I gained anything from reading it. But then again, it's more than I could say about Breaking Dawn because I have such a negative aspect from reading that anything else is basically going to go straight up to the top for me. So I'm going to probably put this one just underneath New Moon? Yeah, I'm going to put this right underneath New Moon because although there are some interesting changes, there's just not a lot of differences, I just feel the copy and pasting just resonating out of this book. But do you know what is not copy and pasted? Midnight Sun. Yep, the Twilight book from Edward's perspective. Oh, joy. So, apparently, it's the same story, okay? It's literally the same exact story from the first book, but from Edward's perspective. So, we get a little bit of what's going on inside that little mind there, the little creepy vampiric mind, if you will. So basically we get the whole thing where, Edward tries to tone out all the minds and all that because he can mind read or whatever. He's just trying to tone it out and he can't and all that. He hates school because, of course, he hates school. Although he's over 100 years old, why he has to be in school, I really don't know. He can just say he's homeschooled or something. Whatever. Anyway, we also get some interpretations of what happens inside other people's heads. Like, for instance, Rosaline. Apparently Rosaline, Edward just really hates her, I guess. There's that. And apparently the Anna Kendrick character, I forget her name, but apparently Anna Kendrick character, she's a lot more of a meanie pants than she is from the outside. And then, you know, he could barely contain himself, you know, with the whole thing. It happens, all that. And it's during the cafeteria scene, apparently, where Edward realizes he can't read Bella's mind. Because, of course, he can't. And then the whole biology scene happens where he smells her and he's just like, oh, shoot, this is the one. This is... I don't know how I can take it, you know, but, you know... Then he formulates a multi-step plan to take out every person in the classroom so he can be with Bella. Because of course he does. Why the hell not? And, you know, he makes the comments when he tries to get out of biology or whatever that, you know, I guess he can be the grandfather of the secretary who's like old as hell too. So there's that, and he just can't stand it anymore, so he just runs away. And I don't know. I don't know if I forgot this from the first book. I mean, it's been so long, guys. My brain is just barely there anymore. But just guess where he runs to. I'll give you a moment. Yes, he runs to Alaska. Yes, because of course he does. Now, granted, Forks, Oregon is closer proximity to Alaska, but still, there's the second biggest country in the world in the middle of getting from Alaska to Forks, Oregon. So I would say that's a little bit of an overreaction there. Yeah, but still, he's 17 in, you know, vampire years, I guess. In human years, he's like 100 or something. So whatever, I guess. So, you know, I suppose in Alaska, he's not wanting to do anything with any other girl, even vampiric girls, I suppose, because hey, Bella is just the way she is, and she's the best person of all time. Okay. And I guess there's a little thing here about vampiric women having sex with men, like actual human people, and they decide not to kill them because they can have sex with them again. Okay, and then he goes back to Forks, Oregon. I don't know what the deal is with that, but let's keep going, I guess. So the siblings and all that, they form a barrier around Edward in the cafeteria, so he doesn't just spring up and, you know, just try to maul Bella and all that. You know, his animalistic tendencies, if you will. But apparently, when Bella comes over, he's just I guess this is jealousy, but he's jealous that he can read Mike's brain, and Mike is, you know, concerned about Bella being sick and all that. But apparently, we find out through this interaction that he cannot read Bella's brain like he can with everyone else. Okay. And that's the reason why he likes Bella, is because he's the mystery that he can't decipher. Just wonderful. And you know, I guess they're bio partners, I suppose, and they're doing their thing. You know, they're just doing bio crap. I don't even know. And then you know, Edward's like, oh, hey, yeah, I wish that I could, you know, be with her forever because in 2 years she'll probably be married to someone else and all that. And I'm just like, okay, oh gosh. I don't really want to be with him. Can we get back to the not Edward's point of view, please? And then he says she's pretty good for a human, you know. Okay. He also goes to see Alice, I guess, and see his future, if you will. And his future is just all chaotic and sporadic and all that. And apparently, she sees a future with Edward, and there's a shadowy figure, and they're living together forever and all that. And oh gee, I wonder who this could be. And I don't know necessarily if this is how she wanted to write this particular part, but Stephanie Myers, let's just sit down for a second, okay? If you're making a semi-pseudo prequel to your, you know, your saga and all that, like, we all know what happens at the end, right? So you're just basically making another book from another character's point of view or all that. You're trying to make a, you know, tension or whatever, like saying about mystery. It's like, oh, hey, who could this be? You know, I would suggest, you know, not making it blatantly obvious, because I'm just reading it and I'm just like, okay. I have no words. I have no feelings. I feel nothing. I feel absolutely nothing. Let's just move on. And then we get the infamous, you know, crash scene, if you will. Yeah, there's the whole, you know, stopping a car with your bare hands and all that type of thing. You know, whatever, super speed, all that stuff. And apparently, we get this thing from Edward where he's apparently through his clenched teeth, he said a naughty word in front of a lady. Yeah. Do we hear this word in question? No. We don't see any cussing in this entire book, in this 2020 Twilight book. I can't believe this franchise is still pumping out content. Yes, I said the word content. And you know, he has a center life crisis, if you will, where he's thinking about, you know, exposing the family and all that type of thing, which I would say rightfully so. You know, you just stopped a car with your bare hands, so, you know, there's that. And then we get some new stuff here, finally, where, you know, Edward actually talks to the family, and apparently a couple of vampires want to kill Bella so they don't have to move and all that again, and have to, you know, reform their life, all that type of thing, you know? And so they don't have to do anything else to any other person. So, yeah, there you go, I guess. And they keep on calling her a child, which I am now getting PTSD from the later books. But then, you know, Alice comes back and tells of Edward's future again, and oh boy, there's new information coming along here that Edward and Bella will probably be together, but not alone. Alice, in fact, is also in love with Bella, supposedly. So yeah, there we go. You gotta get that, oh gosh. Which actually, you know what, if they actually, I don't know if she's going to, you know, write the other 3 books in this saga from Edward's perspective, but I'm going to say this. If there's something like that in here, you know, where Alice and Bella actually, you know, I guess, explore this relationship, I would actually kind of enjoy that. Not because I'm a prude, but because, you know, this would be something new and not necessarily, you know, treading old ground and making stupidity stupidness over here. Change things up, shake things up and make things interesting and not necessarily, creepy and gross. And then, we get some more Bella from Edward's perspective and all that. We get, how she's apparently very kind and very, smart and all that, very, very nice, making decisions that, normal people probably wouldn't make because, she's so nice and whatever. And then he uses this as an excuse to sneak into her house and watch her sleeping. And, so he acknowledges it, but it doesn't make it good and it doesn't make it right, Edward. I would suggest not doing that. But yeah, apparently he's worried that something might happen in her sleep, so he's got to go see her and see her sleep and all that. Okay, wonderful. This is giving me PTSD. And he even brought grease. There's even a special segment in here where he says he brought grease to stop the squeaking of the window over here. And okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for that tidbit. Love that. So yeah, he's still on the edge of whether or not he's going to kill or love Bella. But then Bella says his name in her sleep, and then that just boom, the snap. It just confirms it for him. He loves her. Oh, it's almost like they're star-crossed lovers, even though that's not what star-crossed means. But you know what? Whatever. That's what all the marketing says, that they're star-crossed lovers. They're not, because they survived in the end. So yeah. Anyway, he starts talking to her again and all that. He continues to stalk her because in 2020, stalking's okay still. That's just wonderful. But the good news, ladies and gentlemen, is that the excuse greatly outjustifies, the stalking, because apparently if Mike was to stalk Bella, then he would be just looting and just hovering, just drooling over her. But, Edward's good, because Edward's stalking is the only reason why he needs to stalk, is that's to protect her from, this ambiance or whatever, which is, no. In case any of you are kind of aware here, I'm sarcastic tone. I don't acknowledge the fact that this is, good. So, no, stalking's bad. Don't do it. Not even you're trying to protect them. That's wrong. And the worst thing about it is that there are probably going to be more teenage girls growing up with this interpretation of Twilight. And then, we get the almost assault there, but Edward comes in and he's just like, yeah, good thing I was stalking her, or else she would have been, not okay. Yeah, so stalk her forever, why don't you, Edward? No, I'm joking. Notice the sarcastic tone in my voice. There you go. But then, ladies and gentlemen, and there's no sarcasm whatsoever here, I dare say this is probably one of the smartest decisions in the entire Twilight saga, honestly. For those who have read the book, you probably are wondering why there's a pomegranate, on the cover. So I'm going to explain to you why there's a pomegranate on the cover of Midnight Sun. That's because of Persephone and the pomegranate, meaning that with each time that Edward interacts with Bella, she gets closer and closer to his underworld, which I gotta say, knowing where the story's going to go, this little bit, that's a creative choice that I really did like. Because, you know, despite the creepiness, despite the weirdness, despite the not okayness of the whole thing, Edward still wants to be, you know, Edward still wants to protect Bella, right? But he knows that there's this huge overarching garbage that's, you know, his life and all that. But yeah, he tries to protect her, but in order to protect her, he needs to stay away from her. But at the same time, you know, he's in love with her, so he doesn't exactly know how to interact with that or what to do. So, you know, there's nuance. I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's just a tiny bit, tiny little dust, a tiny little seasoning here of nuance in this book that I actually, you know, I picked up on, and I was like, you know what? Yeah. Good job, Stephanie Meyer. You did something good here. So yeah, you know, apparently it plays out exactly like in Twilight, except, you know, Edward wants to check her into a psychiatric ward, even though he says he's a vampire and all that. So there you go. But, you know, he wants to take out these abusers because they did other things to women, but he's not going to do it because, for reasons, I don't know. So he's going to let Carlisle, whoever that is, to do that. I don't even know these names anymore. I'm sorry. But then, you know, Alice is just pushing to, like, you know, talk to Bella because they're going to be such good friends and all that. There is a section there where he's like, I wonder how Bella's going to like Alice or something, whether or not they're going to be good girlfriends. So, yeah, I would suggest not wording it like that, Stephanie Meyer. You know, you're an author in 2020, so if you say girlfriend, that implies something else, and I don't think you want to imply that. I don't think, you know, there's a lot of, even 2005, that would be something else entirely. I don't know if you're really wanting to push that. Questionable. So yeah, Edward compliments Bella on her sweater because it's not flattering and he doesn't have to, you know, just gawk at her all the time. So that's beautiful. But, you know, I guess he wants to do something nice for Angela because she's such a good friend to Bella. And, you know, he's continuing to stalk everybody, just try to read their minds and all that and see what's going on with Bella and all that because he can't directly, you know, read her mind. So there you go, I guess. So he does something nice for Angela where he lets the word out that he's going to ask Angela out, so her crush can instead ask her out, which, dare I say it, I don't think in this school with these people that goss, you know, that juicy goss would be, you know, put upon the back burner for a good long bit. You know, it would probably get out like in a couple seconds, you know, just, yeah. And, you know, honestly, throughout this section is just a lot of little inconsequential things that are just kind of whatever, you know, it's just, yeah. Rosalie wants to just destroy Edward's car because she's in love with Edward, but, you know, he's in love with Bella, so there's that. And, yeah, apparently the CD was Linkin Park. You know, it was made by, it includes Linkin Park songs. So there's that. But then, a slight chemical in my brain kind of, you know, spouted, you know, the nice chemical, I forget the name of it, whatever. I tried to make a joke. Sorry. So she said that she wants to live in Prince, Rhode Island because of Anne of Green Gables, which I personally really enjoyed Anne of Green Gables, even though it's a Canadian production. It's supposed to be taking place in America, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, though, that's neither here nor there, but still, it was a nice little tidbit. Nice little tidbit there. There's also subtle hints that, Jacob could eventually become a werewolf. So there's that. There's little tidbits and not like, just an overall shock, that in New Moon that he becomes a werewolf. There's little hints in this book that he'll eventually become a werewolf because his mind is very, restful and all that, and very calm and soothing and whatever. So there's that. Give her this. At least she, remembers what she was going to do and all that. But then we get the meadow scene, like in the previous Twilight book. But this time we know that apparently Alice told Edward that she will eventually die in the meadow or something. That there's a future where she could die by Edward's hands in the meadow. So he went to the meadow thinking, or somewhat knowingly, that he might attack her and kill her in the meadow. So there's that. There's also weird futuristic things where, Bella's a vampire, Bella's not a vampire and all that, which begs the question, if she can see the future, if Alice can see the future, why can she see all different types of the future? That's just like thinking. If you really think about, possible scenarios that might happen in the future, chances are you would be Alice, because that's literally what happens. I hate this. I hate to really divulge into this, but this is getting caught up in my mind, and I need to address it. So, let's just make a scenario for a second, okay? Just indulge me, just a slight tangent. But yeah, imagine that you're going to, take a Flintstone vitamin or something. You take it, you die, you take it, you live, you don't take it, you die, you don't take it, you live. That type of thing. Alice could see all four of these, like, in her mind, but you can think it in your mind too. There's like a 50-50 shot you will die from eating a Flintstone vitamin, right? But Alice can see it, so that means it's going to happen in the future. There's a possible scenario where this could happen in the future. There's also a possibility that whatever you think could happen in the future. I don't understand this power. This power is so useless. So yeah, the infamous, skin, diamond, sparkly skin thing happens, but this time she sees that, she describes it as like it's a man on fire. So, okay. I don't necessarily mind this, vampire lords. They've been changing vampires forever, okay? Is the sparkly skin stupid? Yes. Is the fact that they can transform into bats stupid? Yes. Is the fact that they, are basically Frank Sinatra in 1940s, basically, it's so attractive to women that it's just uncanny, Is that stupid? Yes. Yes, it is. So I don't really care. But then again, the sparkly skin is so memeable, it is stupid. So at least we have that. And some random bullcrap happens. Alice comes in with Jasper and tells Bella that they're going to be family, they're going to love us and all that and whatever. So there's that. Apparently, the reason why they don't go to Alaska or stay in Alaska is because, this one vampire is so thirsty for Edward that, she gets just wrathful, I guess, that type of thing. More stalking, and Edward, I don't even know anymore, kind folks. It's getting old. We find out that, they're both in their very souls tormenting them. That type of thing. If you know Attack of the Clones, there you go. Yeah, I had to do something here, okay? Hulk smash was just like, I don't know. 3-4 books ago. I missed that. It is the best book in this entire saga. And, they play baseball because, of course, vampires play baseball. Honestly, I think this is more stupid than the sparkly skin, but hey, what can you do? Then we get the confrontation, and apparently this one person is just hyping up all their vampires, vampiricness, I guess, which is one of the reasons why I guess they, don't attack Bella. It's because I guess whoever's doing that, I forget who, but the vampire that's can manipulate minds or whatever, he kind of manipulates their minds to how they see everybody, their perception, that type of thing. So heighten, one of the vampire's beauty, Edward's angst, all that type of stuff. And then, we just get this huge, gigantic hoopla over here where, Edward, I guess, causes a car accident and all that, drugs a woman, that type of thing. And then that whole shebang kind of happens where, he sucks the vampiric virus out of Bella and all that, and they do some vampiric fights and all that type of thing, it's just a big hoopla over there. And then I guess Alice uses her power finally to course correct the future, so she knows exactly what to do in any point in time, so she can, keep the right future in focus. I don't know why you didn't do that the first time, but whatever. And honestly, that's basically it. They get kind of climbing up the loose ends and all that. Edward decides that he's going to leave Bella or whatever, because of all the, hoopla and craziness when she's, unconscious and all that. But he decides to stay because, he's lifeless body, future and all that, so there's that. Bella pushing to be a vampire, and Edward's saying nope. And that's basically it. That's all. So I would say this is on par with the first Twilights. It's not necessarily the worst thing that I have seen or read, like the last book, Breaking Dawn. And if there was less, stalking in it, this would probably be a fairly decent book. Yeah, I mean, without the stalking, which is a hindrance to this entire story, I dare say this might be a slight edge above Twilight. But because there's a huge implication of stalking in this book, I'll probably put it at the same level of Twilight's. It's not... There is subtle hints that it is somewhat good. And I did like the Persephone thing here. Just like I like the first, 15 pages of Bella's, actual character. But then it just kind of continues down that huge rabbit hole of deplority and garbage. And I get it, this is what YA is and all that, but, there are better YA things out there, it doesn't have to be, just cringe and stalking and weirdness, as much as I hate Divergent, which is basically a carbon copy of Hunger Games and The Maze Runner with a slight hint of Twilight in there, ironically, at least in that, at least there's no stalking, at least there's no underage grooming, all that type of stuff. At least it didn't specifically, target a real-life Native American tribe and kind of, hurt their culture because of it. Yeah, that's a little... That's a little bad. I would say it's a slight badness there, yeah. But all in all, Midnight Sun is basically on par with Twilight, the first one. We're right back where we started. And we're done. I have finished it. I finished every single novel in the Twilight Saga. I didn't think I would be able to come out of this, but I did. and I am not the best for it, let me tell you. And I get it, okay? These books are not meant for me specifically. You know, I'm not a teenage girl. You know, I've had a few run-ins with, like, you know, teenage love and all that, but it was never to this extreme, thank God. I was never exposed specifically to these novels growing up. I was never exposed to the films growing up, which I gotta say is probably for the better. You know, I think I'm smarter not doing that. You know, if you enjoy these books, okay, there's no knocking, there's no bad thoughts towards anyone who actually read and enjoyed these books. You enjoy what you want to enjoy, you know, that is up to you. It's fine, you know, it's whatever. I personally don't want to necessarily enjoy these books based on the few really, really wrong things that are in these books. But, you know, if you have nostalgia for them, you actually do enjoy these books. As long as you're of age and you're smarter, you know, and you're looking back on these like, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny. I wouldn't really, you know, badmouth you, okay? I wouldn't really, you know, have a disdain for you. As long as you know the truth, and this is basically fantasy, and this is kind of, you know, you shouldn't act like this in real life, then yeah, I would, you can read these books and be fine with them, I suppose, but just keep that in mind, kind folks. And if you are willing to read these books, just keep an open mind, and walk on eggshells with your tippy toes in certain scenes, especially in New Moon. But that's all for that. Anyway, though, guys, what you guys think of the books? Do you like them? Do you hate them? What do you guys think about it? Why don't you comment and let me know? And don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell. More vids come your way. And hey, take care, guys.